Chapter 911. Good luck, Yuma. Lin Feng smiled as he cheered for Yuma. Yes, Lindigo. Lin Yuma smiled faintly as her heart warmed. Lin Feng's appearance had completely melted the layer of ice in her heart and on the outside. Behind them, Steward Wu looked at Lin Feng in surprise before looking at his young mistress. He immediately reacted and nodded in realization. He lowered his head and smiled with relief. So that's how it is. Don't be careless. I will come to the 5th arena to supervise you, Lin Feng said. Really? Lin Yuma's beautiful eyes sparkled as she was overjoyed. How could it be fake? Lin Feng smiled. He instantly took out a golden metal plate and waved it. The number 5 was clearly engraved on the back of the metal plate. Lin Feng said, I had Zhong buy a ticket yesterday. But weren't the tickets sold out half a year ago? Lin Yuma sneered. Money makes the world go round, Lin Feng said with a smile. All right, it's almost time. Remember, don't be too merciful. I will. Lin Yuma nodded and smiled sweetly. After sending off Lin Yuma, Lin Feng returned to his residence. Oh, let's get ready to cheer for Yuma. Lin Feng muttered to himself as he looked around. However, Guanzhong was nowhere to be seen. Even his 2 daughters, who never left his side, were taken care of by the maidservants. What is Zhong busy with so early in the morning? Lin Feng was rather puzzled, but he did not pay it much mind. Just as he was about to return to his room, an aura suddenly rushed over in a hurry. HM. Lin Feng looked back and saw that it was the direction of the teleportation array in his residence. Zhong flew over with a face full of joy. He seemed to be holding a thin black metal plate in his hand as he shouted, Young master, good news. Step. Guanzhong stood still, grinning from ear to ear. Young master, there's good news. What is it? Lin Feng asked curiously, pointing at the black metal piece in Guanzhong's hand. This? Yes. Guanzhong nodded and stuffed the black metal piece over. Lin Feng curiously picked it up. It was as thin as a golden leaf, and the black light shone with a moving luster. On the back of the metal plate, there was a huge number 10 engraved on it. The ticket to Arena number 10? Lin Feng was surprised, but he immediately rejected the idea. No. On the front of the black metal piece, there were fine stripes and a row of numbers. 881. Obviously, this was different from the ticket. Guanzhong smiled. This is the proof of participation in the preliminaries, the martial artist's identity card. Proof of participation in the preliminaries? Lin Feng was stunned. Young master, look. The number 881 in front is the serial number, Guanzhong explained in detail. And the number 10 at the back is Arena number 10. With this identity card, young master, you can enter Arena number 10 and participate in the preliminaries again. Lin Feng burst into laughter. Although he understood, he still found it inconceivable. What's going on, Zhong? It's like this, young master, Guanzhong said tirelessly. 15 minutes later. I see. Lin Feng nodded in realization. So, you want to get the identity card early in the morning? Yes. Guanzhong smiled. I only confirmed it when I contacted the assembly yesterday. Because the procedures were a little complicated, it took a little longer. Fortunately, I made in time. As he spoke, Guanzhong let out a long sigh, as though a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. Holding the black identity card in his hand, Lin Feng smiled. The affairs of the world were truly unpredictable. Unexpectedly, he could still participate in the preliminaries. If the preliminaries schedule and the number of participants have been fixed, it could not be changed. However, there were only 880 warriors left in the Greenfield Immortal Sect. The remaining 120 spots were not selected by other mission sites. Instead, they were virtual empty spots. That was why he was able to fill in the votes. It seems that I will gain a lot from this Vermilion Bird Challenge. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. Even the heavens had opened a back door for him. It was quite a coincidence. My opponent is really unlucky. Lin Feng smiled. Originally, he could have advanced without a bye, but now he was afraid that it would be for naught. Thinking about it, he felt sympathetic. I'm afraid it will turn from great joy to great sorrow. Guanzhong also smiled. But young master, The 880 spots of the Greenfield Immortal sect have been fixed and cannot be changed. Therefore, your opponent's ranking is still relatively high. He is the 120 warrior of the 10,000 gold world. Oh, what's his name? Lin Feng asked casually. Wishful District, Wu Kai. Sakiya District, White Cloud Tower. White mist swirled around it, hidden between the faint clouds. This place was still so mysterious, and it was extremely attractive in Shirluo County. This was because the master behind the scenes of Shirluo County lived here. The saint, Sakiya. Senior sister, I'm leaving. Huawei cupped his hands gently. It was a blessing in disguise. Sakiya had accepted Huawei as an in-name disciple. Huawei had been cultivating in the White Cloud Tower for the past year, and his strength had improved by leaps and bounds. Oh, don't embarrass me. Shi Jixin waved her hand casually. Her big eyes flashed as she held her chin in boredom. Her face was still like that of a porcelain doll. Although a year had passed, Shi Jixin's bodily functions had been suspended because she had been in a coma for too long. Therefore, her appearance and body shape had not changed much. Although she was younger than Huawei, Shi Jixin had entered the sect much earlier than Huawei, and thus became the little senior sister. However, Huawei obviously did not care. He smiled and said, "Yes, senior sister." Then, he turned around and left. To him, being able to enter Sakiya's tutelage was undoubtedly a great opportunity. As for calling Shi Jixin's senior sister, it was not embarrassing. In terms of strength, Shi Jixin was several streets ahead of him. That day, the Battle of the Greenfield Immortal Track had determined the winner. Shi Jixin was shockingly strong. Her strength could not be judged by her age. How boring. If I had known, I would have participated in the competition. Shi Jixin pouted. She and Bei Mingyang were in a special coma, so they had been given a bye for 2 rounds. They did not need to participate now. Unknowingly, a year has passed. Shi Jixin sat on the tower, looking at the clouds with her beautiful eyes. She murmured softly, "The trickster is still in a coma, and the bad guy is dead." She pursed her lips, feeling a little sad. She sighed softly. "I'm really useless as a captain. That day, if only I had been a little stronger." Shi Jixin's heart still ached when she thought about it. Especially Lin Feng. He had saved her life, but he had died. "Bad guy, big bad guy." Shi Jixin snorted and murmured, "You did it on purpose. You did it on purpose to not let me repay your kindness, didn't you?" As she spoke, Shi Jixin's tears fell uncontrollably. She felt sad when she thought about it. After all, she was still a little girl. She was sentimental. At this moment, "Who made my little princess cry again?" A teasing voice came from behind. It was a father with a kind smile. The figure had a dignified aura. It was the tower master of the White Cloud Tower, the sage, Sakiya. Shi Jixin quickly wiped away her tears and sniffed. She turned around and said angrily, "I'm not crying, father." Looking at Shi Jixin, Sakiya felt his heart ache. He had seen this scene countless times in the past 6 months. Although his daughter was young, she had a strong sense of responsibility. She blamed Bei Mingyang's coma and Lin Feng's death on him. She was often sad, but this time it was different. "Jixin, father has good news for you." Sakiya's eyes flashed. "What good news?" Shi Jixin asked curiously. Her eyes were still a little red. "Your companion, Lin Feng, who was supposed to be dead, has returned." Shagaruda looked over and said slowly, "Your companion, Lin Feng, has returned." Ah! Shi Jixin was completely stunned. There was a sea of people. It was as if all the martial artists in Shirluo County had come. The 10 Shirluo arenas were all packed with people. They anxiously entered the arena, afraid that they would miss the exciting duels. F***CK, get out of the way. Shove your mother. The people in front, hurry up. Damn it, I've been waiting for an hour, and I still can't get in. The crowd cursed and scolded. It was a mess. Although the Shirluo arena was full at this moment, there were still many people who could not enter. The entrance had long been stuffed. All kinds of seat and standing tickets were sold like hotcakes. Every penny earned at the convention was a penny earned. The entire arena was in a frenzy. If it were not for the fact that fighting was not allowed here, there would have been corpses everywhere. At this moment, in the contestant lounge of the arena, it was also bustling with noise and excitement. The contestants had arrived very early. They were rubbing their palms, tried to adapt, and familiarize themselves with the environment as soon as possible. After all, they had to make sufficient preparations. Many of the martial artists knew each other. After all, they were all in Sherluo County. Many families, sects, and forces had interacted with each other. Some of them had even met in the qualifiers and the preliminaries. Those who could enter the preliminaries were basically famous in Sherluo County. Even if they had never met each other, they had heard of their names. Haha, Lin Fan, long time no see. A short-haired young man came over to greet him with a smile. Long time no see. Wang Long, Lin Fan's eyes were burning. The two shook hands politely, but there was a fake smile on their faces. Back then, they had met in the Rising Star battle. Lin Fan had lost by a margin. It's a pity that I can't meet you in the preliminaries. Wang Long smiled faintly. His words seemed to be mocking Lin Fan. Is that so? Then you're really lucky. Lin Fan smiled lightly. The two seemed to be greeting each other, but they were actually fighting openly and covertly. Such scenes could be seen everywhere. Basically, the circle of Star Lords was only so big. Everyone knew each other. Look, Lin Fan, your opponent in the second round. Wang Long pointed to the front and laughed. Wishful area, Wu Kai. This guy is really lucky. He drew a good lot. In the first round, he's matched up against the 881st place of the Wizard of Oz, which happens to be an empty number. What's the use of that? Lin Fan said disdainfully. He can pass the first round, but he can't pass the 15th. He'll still die in the second round. Hey, you're not the same as before. You're full of confidence, huh? Wang Long's eyes flashed. Lin Fan smiled coldly. Indeed, he was full of confidence. He was no longer the ignorant person he used to be. Even if Lin Feng was still alive, he was 100% confident that he would let him die without a burial place. Chapter 9:12. Suddenly, the noisy lounge quieted down. The shocking clamor seemed to disappear in an instant as every martial artist stared at the entrance. Even Lin Fan and Wang Long, the pair of enemies, couldn't help but turn their heads. Their eyes lit up in an instant, and their expressions were extremely solemn and radiant. It was a white-haired young man. The soft sword at his waist was his biggest symbol. His white hair stood straight, but he didn't give off the slightest feeling of desolation. Instead, he had a vigorous temperament, and his eyes were bright and spirited. It was the expert who had defeated Lin Feng with absolute superiority in the qualifying round. He was the genius who had emerged as a new force in the Vermilion Bird Challenge qualifier. He was ranked first. Bai Qi. He was also assigned to the 10th arena. Bai Qi's appearance caused a huge commotion. Today, he was no longer the unknown warrior from the qualifying round. He had won first place in the qualifier in a domineering manner. Bai Qi's name could be said to be famous in the entire Sherluo County. The great-grandson of the Pulsatilla Sr. Regardless of appearance, family background, or character, he was a dragon among men. He attracted the admiration of countless girls. He stepped forward proudly, and whispers sounded around him. Bai Qi's appearance had undoubtedly changed the entire lounge. Everyone's gazes were focused on the number one genius, mixed with jealousy and envy. Oh, right. Lin Fan, what did you say about that Wu Kai? Wang Long suddenly turned his head, pretending that he couldn't remember. He suddenly clapped his hands and laughed. Yes, he said that he can pass the first round, but not the 15th. He will still die in the second round. Lin Fan's eyes sparkled coldly as he stared at Bai Qi without saying a word. That's an apt description for you, Lin Fan. Wang Long revealed a look of schadenfreude. He laughed and said, I'm afraid you can only pass the first round, but not the 15th. Even if you beat Wu Kai and enter the third round, you will still die. A fierce light flashed in Wang Long's eyes. He suddenly laughed loudly and walked away. Lin Fan was left standing alone like a ferocious wolf. That pair of cold white eyes flickered with a hint of malevolence. Bai Qi's appearance caused a commotion in the lounge. However, the brief silence quickly came to an end. Noise and chatter rose once again. Bai Qi sat in the middle of the lounge and did not talk to anyone. He just calmly closed his eyes and adjusted his state of mind. To him, perhaps the first match was against the last place, and there was almost no suspense. In fact, the odds for this match were so low that it made one's hair stand on end. However, even a lion needed to use all its strength to catch a rabbit. Those who could enter the preliminaries were no weaklings. Bai Qi remembered very clearly that during the qualifying round, a mere one-star general had caused him a great deal of trouble. If it wasn't for the fact that he had an advantage in terms of strength, he would have been defeated long ago. Therefore, no matter who his opponent was, he couldn't be careless. Time passed slowly. In the Luo martial arena, more and more spectators were gathering. People were squeezing and pushing against each other. Not only were there no empty seats, there wasn't even an inch of space to stand on. Hundreds of millions of viewers. This was a once-in-a-century event in Luo Prefecture. The first preliminary round of the Vermilion Bird Challenge competition was about to begin. Wah! The door of light flashed. At the entrance, another figure flickered. It was a young man in black martial attire. He calmly stepped in. There was a faint smile on his face, and there was a hint of curiosity. He didn't fit in with the surrounding martial artists. The other martial artists were all wearing star armor, which greatly increased their defense. However, this young man, but it was empty. Oh, I forgot to wear star armor. Lin Feng laughed involuntarily. When he entered, he remembered that his star armor had been damaged during the battle with the Greenfield Immortal Track. He hadn't worn it in the Tianwu continent. After a year, he had almost forgotten. The surrounding gazes focused on him. However, most of them had a hint of curiosity in their eyes. They had never seen a new face before. After 2 or 3 glances, they returned to their senses. In terms of fame, Lin Feng and Lin Feng were more than one level apart. In fact, even Lin Fan's fame was much greater than Lin Feng's. However, was it useful? Lin Feng didn't care at all. All of this was merely a passing cloud. For martial artists, the only thing they cared about was strength. Lin Feng's eyes swept past the faces in the lounge. In an instant, Lin Feng's gaze froze, radiating a bright light. At that moment, Bai Qi, who had been resting with his eyes closed, seemed to have sensed something. He opened his eyes and looked at each other. The two of them were like stone statues. It was too familiar. "It's you," Lin Feng and Bai Qi said at the same time. Suddenly, they burst into laughter. Their eyes flashed with a strong fighting spirit. The two of them thought of the qualifying battle. It was unforgettable. This was especially so for Lin Feng. That battle had truly taught him the meaning of there is always someone better than you. He had suffered a great defeat. From the beginning to the end, he was completely suppressed by Bai Qi. After that, he went into seclusion to cultivate. When he wanted to challenge Bai Qi again, the qualifying battle had already ended. Boom! In an instant, the entire resting room became lively. Who is he? He seems very powerful to be able to make Bai Qi pay so much attention to him. But why haven't I seen him before? Everyone was talking and sizing up Lin Feng curiously. The focus that had just been lost instantly gathered once again. Within the crowd, Lin Fan was completely stunned on the spot. His mouth was wide open in shock, and he was unable to utter a single word. After a while, he reacted. His eyes flashed with disbelief as he shook his head. Impossible! How is this possible? Lin Fan was shocked. Lin Feng was clearly dead. How could he still be alive? Furthermore, he appeared here. What a joke. Bai Qi. Lin Feng. The two of them stood facing each other, their eyes shining. They introduced themselves and shook hands in a friendly manner. You're much stronger than before. Bai Qi's eyes flashed. Although he felt that Lin Feng hadn't reached the cosmic realm state, his qi contained a rather dangerous feeling. You too. Lin Feng smiled. Bai Qi's strength had reached the cosmic realm state level 2. In such a short time, he broke through to the cosmic realm state level and even reached the cosmic realm state level 2. Bai Qi's improvement was rather shocking. The feeling he gave off was still the same strong feeling just like the feeling he gave off during the qualifying round, when he gave off an enormous pressure. However, he was no longer the same as he was during the qualifiers. His battle intent condensed. He had met his match. Whispers could be heard all around, discussing Lin Feng's origin. However, whether it was the qualifiers or the qualifiers, Lin Feng was too low-key. He carried the title of last place in almost every round. It was hard for people to notice him. The only one who truly recognized Lin Feng was Lin Fan. Lin Fan gritted his teeth, and the hatred he had been suppressing surged up. Lin Fan looked at Lin Feng with an extremely cold gaze. Good, very good. Since he's not dead yet, I'll send him on his way. Lin Fan clenched his fists as the veins on his forehead popped out. He was like an evil wolf. The short commotion soon subsided. Lin Feng and Bai Qi only greeted each other, but they already knew each other. At this time, the thunderous cheers outside were already deafening. Lin Feng looked out the window as his eyes flashed. A middle-aged man in martial attire stood in the center of the arena and announced the start of the qualifiers. One of the 9 giants. Although he didn't know who that person was, he could feel a terrifying aura, especially the saber at his waist. It gave people a heart-palpitating feeling. It was as though no defense could stop this saber. The Saber King is indeed the Saber King. His aura is indeed different. Bai Qi stood beside Lin Feng calmly as his eyes flashed. Saber King? It's the sect leader of the Moonlight Saber sect, Hua Yi Dao, Lin Feng murmured. Although he didn't know much about Shiluo County, he had heard of some of the true experts. For example, Hua Yi Dao was not only one of the 9 giants of Shiluo County, but he was also one of the top 10 experts. He was quite famous. Lin Feng's eyes flashed as he stared at the figure in the distance. He immediately felt a strong desire to fight. One day, he hoped to fight with him. I'll go first, Brother Lin. Bai Qi smiled faintly as he nodded at Lin Feng. Okay, Lin Feng replied. In an instant, Bai Qi flew out from the window like a sharp arrow, causing a thunderous roar to resound through the air. As the focus of Arena Number 10 and the most eye-catching expert in the qualifiers, the first match of the qualifiers was between Bai Qi and Huang Zifeng. One was the first, and the other was the last. There was no suspense in this match, but there was a lot of excitement to watch. The first round of the preliminaries in Arena Number 10. There was no such thing as luck in a real battle like this. Huang Zifeng gritted his teeth and fought with all his strength, but he was still easily defeated by Bai Qi. However, Bai Qi had obviously held back and only lightly injured Huang Zifeng. It was a good start. This result did not exceed anyone's expectations. Amidst a wave of applause and cheers, Bai Qi left swiftly. Then, the preliminaries began one after another. In just the 5th match, a match with a great disparity in strength, the first warrior died. A warrior who looked like a black bear tore his opponent to pieces. His methods were cruel and bloody. Broken limbs and remains fell. Such a scene was horrifying. In the resting room, many warriors couldn't bear to watch. Their eyes were hesitant, and their hearts were filled with fear. The rules are too cruel. Is it worth it to fight to the death for a match? It's too inhumane. Everyone spoke one after another, but it resonated with them. However, those who complained were basically warriors who had not broken through to the Star Sector level. How can a true warrior be afraid of death? Lin Feng's eyes flashed, but he could understand the purpose of the meeting. A large portion of the warriors in the 9 states were too comfortable. Killing was prohibited, so they didn't know the true essence of being a warrior. And this time, without a doubt, was a very good touchstone. A true warrior had to go through a lot of trials and experiences of life and death. Only then would one have great willpower and perseverance to become a dragon among men. Chapter 9:13. The matches continued one after another. Although there was only one arena, every match was completed very quickly. The time it took to burn half an incense stick to finish a cup of tea, or even a quarter of an hour. Basically, there was a considerable gap in strength in the previous matches. Even if one fought stubbornly, they wouldn't be able to hold on. It was very rare for a lower level to defeat a higher level. Those who could make it into the top 100 were definitely strong. However, there would naturally be exceptions. After all, no one who could make it into the preliminaries was weak. In the 35th and 57th matches, there were results of a lower level defeating a higher level. It was a huge upset, and in the 66th match, it was even more shocking. The warrior with the number 935 was actually a first-order star sector-level strong warrior. He directly killed the opponent with the number 66 foot in less than 3 moves. The scene was extremely bloody and cruel. However, as the matches went on, the audience gradually got used to this level of battle, because it was more direct and exciting. Many warriors also learned a lot from life and death battles. This is a signal. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. Subconsciously, it will affect the peaceful warriors of the 9 states. Lin Feng pondered for a moment. He didn't care. To him, this kind of battle with no restrictions on life and death was very suitable, because he had been like this since he was young. Time passed bit by bit. Soon, the first round of the preliminaries of the 10th arena was 20% complete. After officially entering the 100th match, the situation started to become more balanced. Most of the warriors ranked in the top 100 of each arena were strong, and those ranked after the 100th were basically similar in strength. In general, those ranked at the front still had the advantage. However, compared to the 90% winning rate before the 100th match, it had fallen below 80% and reached around 75%. The strength of the warriors was getting closer and closer, and the audience's emotions were getting higher and higher. A match with a huge disparity in strength looked very comfortable and refreshing, but a match with a similar level of strength looked even more exciting and stirring, even to the point of much more cruel. Often, victory and defeat were decided in an instant. And now, the betting became much more interesting. The situation changed rapidly. One thought could go to heaven and hell. From time to time, many warriors could be seen waving their arms and sighing. Their eyes were filled with disappointment and even despair. The mentality of a gambler was undoubtedly revealed. As the emotions became more and more heated, the competition gradually reached the 120th match, a match that should have been judged as a win. Number 120, Shaoyang Sword Sect, Rui District, Wukai. The martial artist in charge of hosting shouted. A handsome young man stepped into the arena with a smile on his face. His silver armor was obviously extraordinary. Although he was only a peak star lord, Wu Kai's equipment was obviously quite good. Astral armor, astral treasures, and the sword on his waist suggested that he was from a wealthy family. He opened his arms and greeted the audience with a smile. Wu Kai's expression was very relaxed. He drew a good lot. His opponent was the 881th empty account of the Wizard of Oz. Showing up was only a formality according to the rules. Soon, as the martial artist in charge shouted out a number, but no one answered, the countdown began. 10 seconds later, according to the rules of the preliminaries, he would be able to win without a fight and easily advance to the second round. Number 881. A loud shout rang out. There was no introduction or name. This was because the number 881 on the preliminary round's matchup list was empty. The audience was also bored. According to the video system on the seats, the number 881 was empty. More importantly, Wu Kai's payout for this match was 1,000. In other words, there was no payout. However, the affairs of the world were always beyond one's expectations. Swoosh! A black figure dashed out of the lounge at lightning speed. All the participating cultivators were startled, looking at each other in dismay. The most shocked one was none other than Lin Fan. His chest heaved up and down as he looked outside the window. He had never thought that Lin Feng was not only a participant, but also number 881, his possible opponent in the next round. Is there anyone with number 881? I don't know. Isn't that an empty account? I've seen the list. Number 881 doesn't have a name. That's weird. Everyone discussed animatedly, and all of them were puzzled. In fact, Lin Feng's name was added at the last moment before the preliminary round began. It was normal that they didn't know. At this time, Lin Feng's appearance in the gladiator arena also shocked everyone. Not only the audience, but also Wu Kai and the martial artist in charge of the gladiator arena. Who are you? It's not your turn yet. Wu Kai frowned unhappily. He was treating Lin Feng as a warrior who would be participating in the next competition. The host walked over and was about to speak, but Lin Feng had already taken out the participant's identity card. The black metal piece was shiny. It was as thin as a golden leaf. The number 881 was clearly visible, and black was the color of the 10th arena. Wu Kai opened his eyes wide and said angrily, "Impossible. This must be fake." Lin Feng smiled indifferently and handed the identity card to the host. The host was at a loss and didn't know what to do. In that instant, whoosh, a breeze blew past, and Lin Feng suddenly trembled. His eyes flickered as he turned his head. It was Hua Yidao. Feeling his aura up close, he was even more intimidating. The saber at his waist had a strong, domineering aura. It made people's hearts tremble. It was as if the surrounding area was under his control. So strong. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. "What's going on?" Hua Yidao asked slowly. "It's like this, Senior Hua." The martial artist in charge quickly explained the situation. Hua Yidao took the ID card. An aura flashed, and the black metal card immediately made a clang. Hua Yidao's eyes burned. "The ID card is real. Little brother, you..." Hua Yidao turned his head and looked at Lin Feng. "It's like this, Senior Hua." Lin Feng bowed slightly. "This junior just filled the slot this morning. Therefore, I didn't register." Hua Yidao nodded. His eyes brightened. "You're also a survivor of the immortal track of Oz." "Yes," Lin Feng replied. "Then why didn't you report it before?" Hua Yidao asked again. "This junior just returned." Lin Feng smiled indifferently. Hua Yidao was slightly startled. "You mean you just returned from the immortal track of Oz?" Lin Feng nodded and didn't say much. Wu Kai and the martialist in charge of hosting the event were stunned when they heard this answer. "Nonsense," Wu Kai said angrily. "The transportation channels of the immortal track of Oz were all destroyed. How could you return to Shirluo Commandery from the boundless ocean?" Hua Yidao looked at Lin Feng curiously. He wanted to know the answer. "But I don't want to answer," Lin Feng said indifferently. There was no need to answer such a personal question. "You..." Wu Kai's face turned red. Just as he was about to speak, Lin Feng interrupted him. He looked at Hua Yidao and said slowly, "It's actually very simple. Senior Hua, you can contact the conference headquarters. I think there should be a record there." Hua Yidao didn't ask any more questions. He immediately turned on his communicator. Wu Kai looked at Lin Feng, but his heart was in a mess. This opponent who appeared out of nowhere made him feel very uneasy. He clenched his fists. Suddenly, he saw Lin Feng's martial suit, and his eyes lit up. Right? He seemed to have just returned. No wonder he doesn't even have star armor. What do I have to be afraid of? We're both peak cosmic lords. I should have more advantages than him. Wu Kai's eyes brightened. Looking at Lin Feng up and down, Wu Kai instantly regained his confidence. The opponent in front of him, who looked like a martial artist in dire straits, was just so. So be it. What's there to worry about? In the audience stand. "I got it. Look, I got it," a warrior suddenly shouted. At this moment, Lin Feng's information had appeared on the video system in front of him, attracting everyone's attention. However, in an instant, the audience burst into laughter. One-star general of the qualifiers, 333,000 of the preliminaries. How did this Lin Feng get into the preliminaries? Are you stupid? The Wizard of Greenfield Immortal didn't even reach the 1,000 qualifiers. As long as someone is still alive, they can enter the preliminaries. Damn, I thought this guy who suddenly appeared was very strong. It turns out he's just a lucky bastard. Hurry up, the odds are up. Hurry up and place your bets. A stone stirred up 1,000 ripples. The audience was soon in an uproar. Even Wu Kai smiled. His hearing was naturally good. He could barely hear a lot of information if he focused. He was startled just now, thinking that some super strong person had appeared. He had forgotten that his opponent was only 881. Compared to him, this guy was far weaker. 1-star general of the qualifiers, last place of the preliminaries. Ah, so that's how it is. Wu Kai immediately relaxed. He raised his head with a hint of arrogance. That's good. I'll just treat it as a warm-up for the second round of preliminaries. I'll get used to the new preliminaries rules first. I'll play with this weak opponent. At this moment, Hua Yidao turned off his communicator and nodded to the warrior in charge of hosting, indicating that there was no mistake. Then, looking at Lin Feng, Hua Yidao's eyes were filled with curiosity and admiration. He slowly opened his mouth and said, "So you're Lin Feng?" "Yes, senior," Lin Feng replied politely. "Very good." Hua Yidao gave a rare smile and patted Lin Feng's shoulder. He didn't say anything else and immediately left. However, this caused Wu Kai to be stunned. The surrounding audience was also puzzled. What was the relationship between this Lin Feng and Hua Yidao? Lin Feng smiled indifferently. Maybe Huawei mentioned me before. Lin Feng pondered. He had a brief contact with Huawei in The Wizard of Oz. Therefore, it was normal for him to mention him in front of his father. At this moment, number 881, Qianluo District's Lin clan, Lin Feng. A shout suddenly rang out. This shout undoubtedly confirmed Lin Feng's identity as a participant. The surrounding audience instantly burst into thunderous cheers. Many gamblers were already very smart. They used this gap and the crowd's unfamiliarity with Lin Feng to place large amounts of chips on Wu Kai in a vain attempt to make a fortune. "Thank you for your guidance." Lin Feng smiled and nodded. "Okay," Wu Kai snorted. "Separate." A deep shout rang out again. Lin Feng and Wu Kai instantly jumped back and separated by a distance. The competition officially begins. I wish everyone a happy New Year's Day in the new year of 2014. May everything go well. Chapter 9:14. There was a deafening roar. The hoarse roar made all the warriors in the arena seethe. In an instant, Wu Kai drew out his sword. The three-colored light reflected on the agate stone on the blade, making his handsome face shine with a holy light. Countless girls around him screamed. In terms of appearance, talent, and family background, Wu Kai could definitely be called a Prince Charming. Pa! The golden starlight shone brilliantly, condensing an intimidating radiance. Wu Kai was a metal-type martial god from the Reticulum constellation. "Don't worry, I will spare your life," Wu Kai said seriously, with a hint of arrogance. In an instant, swish! He was like a sword, and his sword was like him. As the golden light shot out, Wu Kai flew out. His movements were as smooth as flowing water, without the slightest gap. Although he was only a peak star lord, Wu Kai wasn't weak. The sword in his hand was clanging and completely integrated with his movement technique. Triple star sword technique. Break the setting sun. Wu Kai's eyes flashed with golden light. Golden astral power gathered on the sword in his hand. He had reached the peak of the second level of the forgetting sword state. In terms of strength, Wu Kai wasn't weak among the peak star lords. His sword technique was comparable to Bai Chi's. He must be scared. Idiot. He came to the arena without a star armor. How can this kid be young Master Wu's opponent? The audience mocked. But Lin Feng was still standing in the face of Wu Kai's fierce attacks. He looked calm and expressionless, as if he had been scared out of his wits. All the martial artists in the lounge nodded and commented, and all of them laughed in disdain. Only idiot's opinion. Lin Fan snorted and looked at the familiar figure coldly. He knew Lin Feng very well. Wu Kai's unreserved sword technique looked like a butterfly dancing in the sky. However, that was all. How cunning. Is he pretending to be weak to lure Lin Feng to attack? Lin Fan's eyes were cold. He knew Lin Feng's tricks the best. Very soon, the defenseless Wu Kai would be restrained by Lin Feng's eye technique, and his sword move would be broken by itself. Even Wu Bufan was suppressed by this move. Could Wu Kai be stronger than Wu Bufan? He was bound to lose. Favorable geographical location and people. Wu Kai took advantage of the situation and was unstoppable. The treasured sword in his hand soared into the clouds and spat out mist. The golden rays of light seemed to be able to shatter the scorching sun, sharp and overbearing. seeing that he was about to defeat his opponent. The corners of Wu Kai's mouth curled into a proud smile. The silver star armor on his body shone brightly, making him look even more heroic and extraordinary. But at this moment, Lin Feng moved. Just as Wu Kai's sword move enveloped the entire area, the figure in front of him suddenly disappeared. What? Wu Kai turned pale with fright, his expression changing. What's going on? The sword pierced through the air, causing the surrounding audience to cry out in alarm. At this moment, Lin Feng's figure appeared behind Wu Kai like a ghost. His pair of calm eyes flashed with a trace of radiance. His right hand formed a palm and quickly swung out. Bang! Striking Wu Kai's back, Lin Feng's strength bloomed. Rebirth flame. Flame shot out from his hand, shooting out from his palm. In an instant, puff! Wu Kai spat out a mouthful of blood. The defense of his star armor was instantly broken. The terrifying flames tore through his skin and entered his body. His back felt as if it was being burned. His body felt hot. Before Wu Kai could regain his senses, his head exploded and he fainted. Bang! Wu Kai fell to the ground. Lin Feng was still standing there calmly. The surrounding area was quiet. Everyone stared blankly at the scene in the arena, overwhelmed with shock. They couldn't understand. Wu Kai clearly had the absolute advantage, but why did the situation suddenly change? Wu Kai didn't even resist a single move and was defeated directly. It was very strange. However, the truth was now in front of them, and they had no choice but to admit it. Wu Kai was defeated. In a lounge. What happened just now? That idiot charged too ferociously and was caught by the enemy. He's really stupid. He underestimated his opponent. Wu Kai is really lucky to have got number 120. He's really weak. Everyone nodded and commented, all of them sneering. That was the reality. Everyone kicked a man who was down. No one cared how impressive he was before. A bunch of idiots. Lin Fan humphed coldly, feeling a little disdainful. It wasn't that Wu Kai was weak, but Lin Feng was too strong. If he wasn't affected by Lin Feng's pupil technique, how could Wu Kai have been defeated so miserably? The area shrouded by the sword technique has long restricted Lin Feng. Flaws? There are 3 star techniques and 2 sword oblivion realm. How can there be any flaws? Lin Feng's eyes were glistening as he stared at Lin Feng on the stage. He couldn't help but clench his fists. His opponent for the next round was Lin Feng. Great, we'll settle the old and new grudges together. Lin Fan gritted his teeth and his eyes glistened. He was now a star sector-level powerhouse, and his pupil technique alone was much stronger than Lin Feng's. Lin Fan was full of confidence when facing Lin Feng, who was a star lord. Oh, on the stage, Hua Yidao's eyes lit up. This kid has such a terrifying physical strength. Is he only at the peak of the Star Lord level? There are not many people who could really tell how powerful Lin Feng was, but Hua Yidao was obviously one of them. With his attainments and strength, he was naturally clear about the process of the battle. Lin Feng did not use any complicated tactics or star techniques. Instead, he used the simplest physical technique and tore Wu Kai's sword-intent shroud apart. Actually, it was very simple. Lin Feng's explosive power. It was even more powerful than the sword technique. Indeed, he's not simple. Hua Yidao nodded thoughtfully. I'm afraid even star sector level rank. 3 warriors rarely have such a strong body. How did this kid cultivate? Murmuring to himself, Hua Yidao looked at Lin Feng with even more curiosity. Number 881, victory. Lin Feng smiled when he heard the shout. Things were different now. During the qualifiers, the peak Star Lord warriors were a great threat to him. But now, they couldn't be compared at all. His physical strength had long reached the star sector level, and his star power level was 2 levels higher than ordinary peak Star Lords. Such an advantage was too great, and it was even a little bullying. Therefore, Lin Feng didn't use all his strength and only knocked Wu Kai out. If the fire of rebirth was more powerful, or if he used the fire of devouring, he would probably be lying on the ground now. However, it was meaningless. After all, I have no feud with him. He could have advanced, but when he met me, he's unlucky. With an indifferent smile, Lin Feng flew away and left the place. The audience was left behind, screaming and yelling, but they lost so badly that they didn't even have their pants left. No one could have expected that Wu Kai would actually lose so miserably. It was too horrible to look at. The contestants had a separate exit. Passing through, Lin Feng quickly left the number 10 arena. The first round of the competition was just a formality for him. He didn't feel any pressure. The opponent's strength was on a completely different level from the celestial dog race he met in the Greenfield Immortal track. He didn't show his strength, but he had already won completely. With a flash of light, Lin Feng came to the teleportation point. He could use the teleportation formation to return home directly. It was quite convenient. But suddenly, Lin Feng was stunned. In front, a familiar figure was waiting for him. Her big eyes flickered with tears. It was a flawless face, white with a hint of red. Her straight bangs were her trademark, like an innocent and romantic girl. It was Shi Xin, whom he hadn't seen for a long time. "Captain," Lin Feng smiled and called out the familiar name. That day, it was because he and Shi Xin formed a team that they gradually formed a friendship. After that, they fought side by side and could be called companions who went through life and death together. "Bad guy, it's really you." Hearing the familiar name, Shi Xin's tears couldn't help but fall. There were only two people in her life who would call her captain. One was the fraud, and the other was this bad guy. The sadness that she had suppressed for half a year was released at this moment. Although she had been dejected countless times, Shi Xin was completely different this time. She cried tears of joy. "That's great, that's really great." Shi Xin wiped her tears and smiled happily. "It's great that you're okay." Seeing Shi Xin reveal her true feelings, Lin Feng was quite touched. Besides Yumal, there was someone else who was genuinely worried about his safety. Showing a slight smile, Lin Feng nodded at Shi Xin. "I'm back, Captain." "You bad guy." Shi Xin pouted. "Since you're back, why didn't you come to find me? Don't you know that I've been worried about you?" "This," Lin Feng said helplessly. "I just came back yesterday. Moreover, how was he going to find her?" Lin Feng couldn't help but smile and didn't mind. He knew that this was just a way for Shi Xin to express her concern. Forget it. As expected, Shi Xin didn't care so much. She grabbed Lin Feng and didn't try to avoid him. "Let's go." "Where are we going?" Lin Feng was slightly surprised. "To wash your dust." Shi Xin raised her head, as if it was a matter of course. However, Lin Feng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "I still have something to do." Lin Feng refused. He had promised Yumal that he would watch her compete, so he couldn't break the promise. Other things could wait, but his sister's matter naturally had to be prioritized. Moreover, he did feel a little guilty for making Yumal worry for so long. "All right then." Shi Xin was considerate. Her big black eyes turned, and she said, "Remember to come find me when you're done." "Okay, where can I find you?" Lin Feng smiled. He was quite happy to see Shi Xin. At least he knew that she was safe. He wondered how Bai Mingyang was doing. "Sakya District, White Cloud Tower." Shi Xin nodded. "Here's the first chapter of 2014. Haha, Xiao Xiao went out to play. I hope everyone has a happy new year." Chapter 9:15. Lin Feng said goodbye to Shi Xin for the time being. Although Lin Feng had a lot of things to say after their reunion, he also had many questions in his heart, but now was not the time. He immediately rushed to the number 5 fighting arena, but no way. Lin Feng couldn't help but smile bitterly. Looking at the long line of people outside the number 5 fighting arena, Lin Feng felt a headache coming on. If he wanted to squeeze in, it would be 1,000 times harder than defeating Wu Kai just now. Although the competition had started for a long time, it was still overcrowded. There wasn't even a gap at the entrance. At this moment, "Linda Gu," a joyful voice came into his ears. Lin Feng was slightly startled. Looking back, he saw a beautiful figure with a clear smile on her face greeting him. Although there were many martial artists in the surroundings, her existence was like a snow lotus, completely illuminating the entire space. "Yumal." Lin Feng was surprised. Lin Yumal smiled sweetly and walked over, attracting the attention of the surrounding warriors. "All right." Lin Feng clapped his hands and instantly reacted. His competition in the number 10 fighting arena started from number 1, so it should be the same in the number 5 fighting arena. Yuma's number was so close to the front, so her competition started earlier than his. Looking at her happy face, obviously, "You won?" Lin Feng smiled. "Yes," Lin Yuma said softly. "The first round wasn't difficult." Lin Feng nodded. According to the winning rate of the number 10 fighting arena, the winning rate of the top 100 winners was more than 90%, and the winning rate of the top 10 winners was 100%. "I'm sorry." Lin Feng apologized. Not only did he not make it in time to watch Yuma's competition, but he also made her wait for him here. Obviously, Yuma had been waiting here for a long time between the end of Yuma's match and the end of his own match. "It's all right," Lin Yuma smiled. "Lindigo went to the competition too, right?" "Huh?" Lin Feng looked at Lin Yuma in surprise. Lin Yuma pointed to the star crystal watch on his left hand and said, "I asked Steward Guan." Lin Feng nodded in realization and smiled embarrassedly. "I was too careless. How about this? Let's go to the most luxurious restaurant in Saki District to celebrate for you. Consider it as an apology. Would you do me the honor?" Lin Yuma smiled sweetly. "My pleasure." Minglu. It was located in the bustling area of Saki District. In terms of luxury and grandeur, the famous building could not even be ranked in the top 10 of the entire Sherluo Commandery, but its status was resounding. Any reputable and experienced martial artist knew that the words Ming Lu represented power and status. There had always been a rumor that the owner behind the famous building was the ruler of Sherluo Commandery. However, no one knew the truth, and no one came out to refute the rumor. As the rumor spread, the famous building lived up to its name and became more and more famous. Another thing that was widely known about the famous building was its price. It was very expensive. "So this is what a famous building looks like." Lin Feng nodded and looked up. "Yes, I've always heard of it, but this is my first time here." Lin Yuma's beautiful eyes sparkled as he looked around the rather quaint restaurant curiously. "Let's go in." Lin Feng smiled. As he listened to Yuma's introduction along the way, he was also a little curious. What was so special about this famous building? 10 halls of the famous building? To dine in the Redstone Hall on the first floor, you have to defeat 10 Redstone martial artists? Lin Feng was stunned. Yes, 10 different Redstone martial artists. A well-dressed waiter politely made a please gesture. Lin Feng was quite surprised. This was the first time he had heard of such a strange rule. He looked in the direction the waiter was pointing. In the center of the hall, there was a huge virtual space where dozens of battles were going on at the same time. The surrounding martial artists who were dining were pointing and discussing. It was quite lively. However, it felt like a monkey show. "Is there no other way?" Lin Feng frowned. The waiter looked up and maintained his professional smile. "Sir, you can pay the entrance fee of 1-star crystal and become a Redstone VIP. 1-star crystal." Lin Yuma covered her mouth in surprise. 1-star crystal was equivalent to 100 million fighting spirit coins. In Sherluo Commandery, many Star Lords could not afford it. Not to mention that it was just for a meal. It was too extravagant. However, Lin Feng breathed a sigh of relief. Yuma wanted to come here to celebrate, so he would naturally do his best to accommodate her wishes. However, it was a bit too much to ask for 10 battles in the virtual space. Now that he could solve the problem with just 1-star crystal, it could not be better. Money was not a big problem for him. "Here." Lin Feng's hand flashed, and a star crystal fell into the waiter's hand. The waiter was slightly surprised, as if he did not expect Lin Feng, who looked ordinary, to be so rich. However, he quickly returned to normal. He had seen too many different kinds of guests. "Sir, this way, please." "Lindigo, isn't it too expensive?" Lin Yuma looked at Lin Feng and whispered, 1-star crystal is nothing to celebrate for you." Lin Feng smiled. He would not even blink if it was 100-star crystals. The speaker did not mean it, but the listener meant it. Lin Yuma instantly smiled, like 100 flowers blooming. A girl in love was the happiest when she was valued by her sweetheart. Even someone as mature and generous as Lin Yuma was no exception. After all, when it came to feelings, she was a complete blank. TSK, another spoiled brat. In front, a burly man in black armor came over with a look of disdain. He did not mention any names, but obviously, there was no one else here except for Lin Feng. His eyes glanced at Lin Yuma and then at Lin Feng. There was envy and jealousy in his eyes. He raised his eyebrows provocatively. Look, the Black Bull is picking a widow again. Haha, that rich boy is probably going to be unlucky. I'm afraid he will lose face in front of the beauty. The Black Bull loves to play this trick. Everyone's gazes gathered and whispered to each other. Looking at Lin Yuma, they were all stunned and their hearts were beating fast. However, looking at Lin Feng, who was beside Lin Yuma, they were jealous. It was a classic case of sour grapes. He's coming. He's almost there. Hee. Everyone's eyes were focused. At this moment, the Black Bull was getting closer and closer to Lin Feng. His vicious eyes flashed for a fleeting moment. His left shoulder was filled with a thick energy as he stepped forward, getting closer and closer to Lin Feng. The Black Bull had used this move countless times. Relying on his physique and strength, he brushed past many warriors. At the moment when he brushed past, bang! Lin Feng and the Black Bull's shoulders collided, making a heavy sound. Bang! They fell to the ground. Instantly, there were cries of surprise from the crowd. The one who fell to the ground was not the weak, rich boy they had imagined. It was the Black Bull who was famous for his physical strength. How could this be? Everyone was completely stunned. One must know that the Black Bull's strength was comparable to a Star Sector level warrior. Even a Star Sector level warrior would be at a disadvantage if he was caught off guard. But now, Lin Feng seemed to have just regained his senses. A light flashed in his eyes as he looked down at the Black Bull on the ground. With a smile, Lin Feng extended his right hand. His expression was as if he was giving alms and pity. Instantly, the Black Bull's face turned red and he was furious. Reaching out his bear-like paw, the Black Bull's eyes flashed fiercely. His right hand instantly grabbed Lin Feng's right hand, and all his strength exploded in an instant. However, bang, a flame lit up instantly. Instantly, there was the sound of a pig being slaughtered. It was incomparably shrill. The Black Bull's hand was on fire. At this moment, he was howling hysterically. It was quite pitiful. The surrounding people looked at each other in dismay, not knowing what had happened. At this moment, whoosh, 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 a few figures rushed over. Lin Feng's eyes lit up slightly. Those were 3-star sector-level warriors. The famed tower was indeed extraordinary. Sorry, my protective flames will be released once I'm attacked. Lin Feng pretended to be innocent. You. The Black Bull's hand had just recovered, but there was a burnt smell. He looked quite miserable. He pointed at Lin Feng, unable to say anything. The 3-star sector-level warriors frowned. Since Lin Feng said so, they couldn't do anything. After all, this wasn't the first time the Black Bull caused trouble here. It was a common occurrence. But this time, he was rebuffed. All right, harmony is the most important thing. A Star Sector-level warrior tried to mediate. After all, if this matter blew up, it wouldn't look good for anyone. It would also damage the reputation of the famed tower. Lin Feng smiled and nodded. He didn't look at the pale Black Bull. Instead, he looked at Lin Yuma. Let's go. The latter smiled and agreed. The two then left, leaving the Black Bull with an awkward expression. His face was red and very embarrassed. Linda, you were so sarcastic just now. Lin Yuma covered her mouth and chuckled. Others didn't know, but she saw it clearly. Lin Feng was obviously pretending. He clearly did it on purpose, but he pretended not to know anything, causing the black armored warrior to lose face. Hee. Lin Feng laughed dryly and didn't deny it. He did it on purpose. If it was just a few words, then so be it. He didn't care, but the other party was obviously provoking him. He even channeled force into his shoulder and purposely bumped into him. If it was any other warrior, they would have staggered and fallen on all fours. The other party went a little overboard. He was just giving him a taste of his own medicine. When a person advances a foot, I advance 10 feet. Lin Feng smiled faintly. Lin Yuma nodded lightly. This kind of person eats the soft and fears the hard. The more you avoid him, the more he will step on you. He's just asking to be humiliated. Lin Feng smiled. Let's not talk about it, lest it affects my good mood. Lin Yuma smiled sweetly and nodded softly. Looking at the two's departing figures and the mocking gazes around him, the black bull felt a strong sense of defeat and humiliation. Gritting his teeth and making up his mind, the black bull immediately dialed a name on the star crystal watch. Boss, you have to help me vent my anger. The black bull's eyes burned with anger. After walking around for a whole day, I'm exhausted. Xiao Xiao is going to rest and have a good night's sleep. I'll explode tomorrow. Chapter 916. Sky Martial Continent. So, Lindigo, you and Uncle Lin have been living there since young? Lin Yuma's beautiful eyes flickered as she looked at Lin Feng. That's right. It was only later that I realized that the world I mentioned before was actually just a well. Lin Feng smiled. Back then, he only knew about Sky Martial Continent, but he did not know that it was just one of the millions of islands in the boundless ocean. The real Doling world was so big. Back then, he was just a frog in a well. I understand. Lin Yuma muttered and nodded. No wonder Lindigo was still alive. It turned out that their family was lucky enough to escape. Smiling sweetly, Lin Yuma felt gratified. Fortunately, Lin Feng was still alive. Otherwise, she would not have met him. The world was so wonderful. Only after losing something would one know how precious it was. To Lin Yuma, this year was definitely the most difficult year in her life. It was even more difficult than when her father passed away and her family declined. That was because she was still young back then and was still ignorant about things. But now it was as if she was in pain. Let's talk about you, Yuma. Lin Feng smiled, his eyes shining. Since he started this topic, he naturally had to untie the knot in Yuma's heart. And the best way was to talk about it. With someone who cared about her by her side, Yuma knew that she had not lost all her family. At least, she still had herself. Pursing her lips, her red face turned slightly pale. Lin Yuma's eyes were blurred. She hesitated. To Lin Yuma, this knot in her heart had been there for too long. It was placed in the corner of her heart, and she had not touched it for a long time. Back then, Lin Yuma looked back and muttered, Uncle Lin violated the rules and brought disaster to the family. To protect the family head had no choice but to expel him from the family as a warning to others. And because of that day, father... Wait. Lin Feng's expression changed drastically as he frowned. Yuma, is the Uncle Lin you mentioned my father, Lin Xiaotian? Looking curiously at Lin Feng, Lin Yuma lightly nodded his head. Pung. Lin Feng was greatly shaken. Father, you violated the prohibition and implicated the entire family. What the hell is going on? Lindigu. Lin Yuma was extremely intelligent. He immediately noticed the change in Lin Feng's expression and asked in surprise, Uncle Lin didn't mention what happened back then to you? Yes. Lin Feng did not hide the truth from Lin Yuma. He told the truth. Father was severely injured and unconscious. Before he left, he only left me a letter, asking me to join the Lin clan and seek refuge with my uncle, Lin Jing. Looking at Lin Yuma, Lin Feng smiled helplessly. Unfortunately, I didn't expect Uncle Lin Jing to have passed away long ago. Fortunately, I still have you, sister. Sister, Lin Yuma was startled, a little confused. Since they had already laid their cards on the table, Lin Feng did not hide it anymore. Looking at Lin Yuma, he said seriously, Sister, I know you still resent Father for implicating Uncle Lin Jing back then, but please believe that this was not Father's intention. Blood is thicker than water. You and I are still brother and sister. Even if you don't want to, this is an unchangeable fact. Perhaps I can't protect you in 20 years, but now and in the future, I will use all my strength to protect you and not let you suffer any harm. With a burning gaze, Lin Feng spoke from the bottom of his heart as he stared at Lin Yuma. However, at this moment, Lin Yuma was completely stunned. She felt incredulous and did not know whether to laugh or cry. Why would Lindigu treat her as his sister? Could it be? Lin Yuma immediately reacted, secretly thinking that Lin Feng was a big muddle-headed bug. If they were brother and sister, how could she call him Uncle Lin? Wouldn't that be wrong? They had been betrothed since they were born, but they had become brother and sister. Lin Yuma pursed her lips, and a slight blush flashed across her beautiful face. She was about to explain. Suddenly, there was a commotion in the distance. Lin Feng and Lin Yuma immediately looked back. They saw a burly giant carrying a giant axe on his back, valiantly walking over. His strong aura made everyone around him tremble in fear. He was dressed in black fine steel armor and looked extraordinarily mighty. There were 2 decorative wings on his head, making him look majestic. A star sector-level warrior. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. The person's aura was quite strong and aggressive. Behind him were many underlings, and one of them, it was the black-armored warrior who had clashed with him just now. Obviously, he had called for reinforcements. You were the one who provoked the Heavenly King gang just now? The giant axe warrior's face was fierce, and his eyes were bigger than copper bells. His powerful aura enveloped the entire area, and an extremely powerful pressure was released. The true identity of a star sector-level warrior was revealed without a doubt. Behind him, dozens of Heavenly King gang warriors were clamoring, their swords drawn. It's clearly you. Lin Yuma frowned slightly and was about to stand up, but a pair of large hands pressed down on her shoulders. Lin Yuma's voice suddenly stopped. She looked over and saw Lin Feng slowly getting up, and her heart instantly calmed down. So what if I am? Lin Feng said calmly, looking straight at the giant axe warrior without any fear. Lin Yuma couldn't help but be surprised, but she understood after thinking about it. The other party was obviously here to find fault, so there was no point in denying it. She might as well admit it and avoid being laughed at. She couldn't use force here anyway. How dare you? The giant axe warrior's eyes flashed coldly, and the giant axe behind him vibrated violently, making a clanging sound as if a fight was about to break out at any moment. However, in the face of the powerful aura, Lin Feng didn't take half a step back. His expression was calm, and he stood firmly like a 1,000-year-old pine tree. What a joke! Even the celestial dog race's aura, which was a star sector level rank 7, couldn't suppress Lin Feng, let alone a mere star sector level warrior. Do you know who I am? The giant axe warrior pointed at himself fiercely. Does it matter? Lin Feng smiled calmly. Kid, don't be too arrogant. A fierce light flashed in the giant axe warrior's eyes. Don't think that you can rest easy just because you can't do anything in Sakia district. Let me tell you, you'd better obediently pour the tea and admit your mistakes. Otherwise, don't blame me for not reminding you when you lose an arm or a leg. It was a blatant threat. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. Of course, he knew something about the underground. In the various districts of Shirluo Prefecture, what couldn't be done openly didn't mean it couldn't be done secretly. There were 2 sides to a blade and a blade. There was light on the side and darkness on the side. Although he didn't know how powerful the Heavenly King gang was, it was definitely not ordinary underground in Sakia district. It was obvious that they could threaten him so recklessly. But so what? If he backed down because of this, he wouldn't be himself. Thank you. Lin Feng smiled calmly, then nodded to Yuma and sat down, leaving the giant axe warrior to the side. The latter's face was ashen. In Sakia district, who wouldn't give face to the Heavenly King gang, but he didn't expect this little bastard to be so daring. Ha ha ha. Good, very courageous. The great axe martial artist grinded his teeth and stretched out his leaf-like hands to clap. At this moment, everyone's expression changed, and they took a deep breath. This action was too familiar. Little bastard, listen carefully. The giant axe warrior's eyes were filled with murderous intent. He squeezed out each word from between his teeth. I, Bo Xiong, will let you walk out of Sakia district alive. I'll cut off my head and let you sit on it. Under the gazes of everyone present, Bo Xiong was unable to get off the stage, and he was truly infuriated. Surrounded by a shocking murderous intent, Bo Xiong's eyes flashed with a fierce light. A suffocating aura lingered in the air. At this moment, what's going on? Zheng Rant's voice rang out, breaking the frozen atmosphere. Anger flashed in Bo Xiong's eyes, but he turned around angrily. Which son of AB Asterisk TCH is shouting, slap? A deafening sound rang out. The entire Redstone Hall was silent to the extreme. Bo Xiong's body staggered, and he almost fell. A fiery red palm print was imprinted on his pale face. Bo Xiong was completely stunned. It was a resounding slap in the face. This is to teach you a lesson for speaking without thinking. A cold voice rang out. It was a well-dressed, middle-aged man. He seemed to have no fighting power, but the slap just now was obviously from him. To be able to make someone as strong as Bo Xiong unable to react, this middle-aged man's strength could be seen. But he seemed to be just a servant. Behind him, there was a man in a golden robe. He had an unusual aura. Beside the man in the golden robe, there were many guards with cold faces. They were like ice without any expression, but the aura they faintly revealed made people shudder. The lineup was quite huge. Oh, Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Although he didn't know the identity of the person, he was obviously very powerful. The aura of these guards was quite strong. They were definitely the strongest of the strong. And this man in the golden robe contained a considerable strength. This Bo Xiong obviously bumped into the muzzle without thinking. He was lucky that he was only slapped in the face, because the man in the golden robe in front of him was probably extraordinary. Yu. Bo Xiong finally reacted at this time, but his face was red. He was slapped in the face in front of everyone and in front of his ordinary subordinates. It could be said that he had lost all face. Although he knew that the people in front of him were quite powerful, he couldn't suppress his anger at all. His chest heaved up and down as he gritted his teeth and clenched his fists. The word endure was easy to say, but it was very difficult to do. Obviously, Bo Xiong was not a tolerant person, but sometimes it wasn't because he didn't want to endure, because the other party's background was too powerful. Presumptuous. The middle-aged man dressed as a butler shouted again. He opened his eyes wide and said loudly, "Why don't you kneel and apologize when you see the city lord?" With one sentence, all of Bo Xiong's anger completely disappeared in an instant. It was replaced by infinite panic and fear. City lord. Bo Xiong opened his mouth wide in horror. In Shirluo County, there was only one warrior who could be called the city lord. He was in charge of the lifeline of the entire Shirluo County, and his status was supreme. Plop! Bo Xiong's legs went soft, and cold sweat flowed. He immediately knelt on the ground. "Greetings, County City Lord." Bo Xiong was as quiet as a cicada in winter. He was so scared that he didn't even dare to raise his head. Today's update. Chapter 9:17. The newcomer was County City Governor Wang Mo. Although Shirluo County City Governor and two envoys had equal status, the County City Governor was definitely the one with the most power in the hearts of most cultivators. Although the Heavenly King faction was famous and powerful in Sakya District, so what? If they offended the County City Governor, they would be uprooted overnight. That was a normal thing. Power and influence represented everything in Shirluo County and the 9 provinces. In the world of cultivators, the strong were respected. The human world was just a demonic beast community with a layer of Emperor's new clothes. There was no difference at all in the core. I have eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. Please forgive me, City Governor. Bo Xiong broke out in cold sweat and kept kowtowing. Although there had always been a rumor that the owner of the famous tower was the County City Governor, no one had ever confirmed it. This kind of thing happened too often in the famous tower. The Heavenly King faction was very powerful in Sakya District, and no one dared to offend them. However, it was different this time. He just had to run into the muzzle of the gun. It was extremely unlucky. "Greetings, City Governor." An endless stream of voices sounded. The cultivators in the Redstone Hall had already stood up and bowed to show their respect. The scene was in an uproar. Only Bo Xiong and his subordinates knelt on the ground with panic on their faces. Right now, they couldn't care less about their reputation. Saving their lives was the most important thing. Offending the County City Governor was not a good thing. However, Wang Mo ignored Bo Xiong. He looked around at the crowd and nodded. No need to be so polite. His voice was calm and seemed friendly, but there was a considerable amount of power in it. This kind of power seemed to come naturally, without the slightest fluctuation of aura. It was completely different from Bo Xiong's. This was the aura of a true superior. At this moment, Uncle Wang, a crisp voice like an oriole, sounded in the Redstone Hall. Everyone was inexplicably suspicious. Lin Feng frowned slightly. What a familiar voice. This is... In an instant, Lin Feng looked in the direction of the voice and saw a young girl who looked like a porcelain doll walking over with a smile. He couldn't be more familiar with her neat bangs and familiar smile. At this moment, the young girl also looked away from Wang Mo and saw Lin Feng. Shi Xin, Lin Feng. The two of them were pleasantly surprised to see each other again. They hadn't expected to see each other here after parting for such a short time. Wang Mo exclaimed softly. His tiger-like eyes curiously sized up Lin Feng, flashing with a faint light. Lin Yuma's beautiful eyes flickered. She was rather curious. She naturally recognized the genius girl, Shi Xin. She was the #1 seed in the qualifying round, but how did Lindigu and Shi Xin know each other? Moreover, it seemed like the two of them were quite close. Why are you here, bad guy? Shi Xin thought to herself. Suddenly, she caught a glimpse of Lin Yuma and was quite surprised. Isn't this the #1 beauty of Shirluo County? Oh. Shi Xin blinked and smiled mischievously. No wonder you said you had something urgent. So you were on a date, and I caught you. In an instant, a heated discussion broke out around them. They had heard that Lin Yuma was the #1 beauty in Shirluo County, but they had never seen her with their own eyes. He didn't expect to see him here. And were they on a date? Lin Yuma's little face turned red, but she didn't deny it. Lin Feng smiled. It's just a small celebration. What about you? I'm with Dad, Sister Bingyan, and Uncle Wang. Shi Xin replied casually. Ahem. Wang Mo coughed a few times. Shi Xin suddenly understood and covered her little mouth. There were some things that couldn't be said casually. She stuck out her little tongue at Wang Mo, feeling a little embarrassed. Wang Mo rolled his eyes helplessly, but he couldn't do anything about this little princess. You're Lin Feng. Wang Mo turned his head and suddenly asked. Yes, County City Lord, Lin Feng said respectfully. It was one thing for him to be familiar with Shi Xin, but in front of the County City Lord, the necessary etiquette and respect was unavoidable. Not bad. Wang Mo's eyes were bright as he sized up Lin Feng and smiled. Heroes indeed come from the young. I heard from Ji Xin that you made a great contribution in the battle at the Greenfield Immortal Track by killing the Celestial Dog Race's level 9 elite and saving her life. Hiss, gasps could be heard from the surroundings. Everyone widened their eyes and looked at Lin Feng in shock, including Lin Yuma. She covered her mouth in disbelief. Was this a joke? Killing a Celestial Dog Race's level 9 Celestial Dog Race. This... Lin Feng couldn't help but smile bitterly. There is such a thing, but the main credit goes to Miss Ji Xin. Lin Feng hesitated for a moment and added the word Miss behind Shi Xin's name. It seemed that Shi Xin's background wasn't small. No wonder Bei Mingyang kept calling her Miss Ji Xin. That day, Shi Xin did indeed take the main credit for killing a Celestial Dog Race's level 9 Celestial Dog. Otherwise, no matter how powerful his Starry Sky eyes were, the gap between their strength was still too big. In an instant, an uproar broke out in the surroundings. Whispers could not be heard. County City Lord Wang Mo was the one who spoke first. Lin Feng did not deny it. In their eyes, his humility was more like an act of concealment and not claiming credit. Everyone's expressions instantly changed when they looked at Lin Feng. This ordinary-looking youth in front of them actually possessed such frightening strength. Even a peak Cosmic Realm State wouldn't be able to kill a Cosmic Realm State level 9 Celestial Dog. The Heavenly Dog race was a rather powerful race. Ordinary level 7 and level 8 Cosmic Realm States of the Heavenly Dog race had power equivalent to a peak cosmic realm state of the human race. However, this ordinary-looking youth could defeat a level 9 cosmic realm state from the celestial dog race. It was too shocking. Although it was unbelievable, these words came from the county city lord, so it could not be false. Bo Xiong was trembling at this moment. He buried his head on the ground and did not dare to raise it. Originally, when he saw that Lin Feng and Shi Jixin knew each other, he already knew that things were not good. Now that he heard Lin Feng's true strength, he was so scared that he did not dare to move. He wanted to slap himself. Not only did he offend the county city lord, but he also offended a terrifying enemy. To be able to kill a level 9 cosmic realm state from the celestial dog race, wouldn't killing him be like chopping vegetables? To think that he still boasted shamelessly that no one would be able to walk out of Sakia district. Now, he had walked into a dead end and could not escape. Bo Xiong's face was red. He wanted to find a hole to hide in. Damn Black Bull! Bo Xiong gritted his teeth. He wanted to tear Black Bull into pieces. Why did he have to provoke a fiend? He did not gain any advantage and even got himself into trouble. He did not know how to deal with this situation. However, Bo Xiong obviously did not see that Black Bull was in a worse state than him. He almost peed in his pants. All right, don't be humble. Shi Jixin pinched her nose. Her eyes flashed. Without your help, I would have been killed by that stinking monster. It's just a coincidence. Lin Feng smiled. He was indeed lucky back then. He just happened to make it in time. If that level 9 cosmic realm state from the celestial dog race had been on guard, he might not have been able to help even if he tried his best. You saved her. How can there be so many coincidences? Wang Emo smiled faintly and suddenly said, I treat Jixin more important than myself. You saving her life is equivalent to saving my life. Lin Feng, if you need any help in the future, just come to the county city lord to find me. I don't dare to say anything else, but in Shiluo County, my words still carry some weight. Wang Emo smiled casually. At this moment, he looked rather amiable. Lin Feng was surprised, but he was a little flattered. At this moment, his right arm moved slightly. Yuma purposely touched it. Lin Feng immediately came back to his senses. Thank you, County City Lord. Lin Feng's eyes lit up, and he did not decline. Although it was just a verbal promise, the County City Lord's verbal promise was quite precious. Just as Wang Emo said, in Shiluo County, his words, it carried a lot of weight. Take this. A light flashed in Wang Mo's hand. Lin Feng reached out to take it. It was a simple black token. This is my token, the bright black token. Wang Mo's eyes flashed as he said slowly, it should help you solve a lot of problems. In the future, when you come to the famous restaurant, you can enter the bright black hall to eat for free with this token. Wang Emo glanced at Bo Xiong and the others who were still trembling and kneeling on the ground. He said faintly, so that you don't meet some useless people who will affect your mood. Thank you, County City Lord. Lin Feng smiled and nodded, putting away the bright black token. Wang Emo nodded. His eyes flashed, and he did not say anything else. He flicked his sleeves and left. It seemed that he had done Lin Feng a great favor by giving him this and that, but in fact he had gained much more than Lin Feng. For words, offering Buddha with borrowed flowers. It was difficult to please Shikala, but it was much easier to win over Shi Jixin. Now, with his touching words, he had done Lin Feng a great favor. Shi Jixin felt a lot closer to him. Remember to find me at the White Cloud Tower. Bad guy, I'm leaving. Shi Jixin blinked and glanced at Yuma. Then she smiled faintly and said, a talented man and a beautiful woman. You two are very compatible. With that, he ran away, leaving behind Lin Yuma, who was blushing, and Lin Feng, who smiled helplessly. What a mischievous girl, Lin Feng said with a smile. Yes. Lin Yuma nodded as softly as a mosquito. Bright black token. Lin Feng took out the simple black token. His eyes brightened. He had just found out about his father's matter. Obviously, there was a great secret behind it. With this token from the County City Lord, it should be able to help him a lot. Since he could use it, he should not waste it. Honorable guest, this way please. A man in formal clothes smiled and said, I'm sorry. I didn't know you were Miss Jixin's friend. Please forgive me for offending you. Lin Feng looked at Lin Yuma. The latter nodded slightly. Okay, let's go to the bright black hall. Lin Feng nodded with a smile. Because of the appearance of the county city lord and the disturbance caused by Bo Xiong, the Redstone Hall was in a mess, especially since he had become the center of attention. It was indeed inappropriate for him to eat. Then, the two of them left. They left behind a crowd that was discussing animatedly. Bo Xiong and his group were at a loss. Their faces were pale. They had poked a big hole. Chapter 9:18. The entire floor of the dark dazzling hall was made of expensive obsidian crystals. The entire hall gave off an ancient and noble feeling. This was the 9th floor of the 10 halls of the famed tower, second only to the top floor. According to the attendant, many peak star sector-level warriors were not qualified to enter. In the entire Shirluo prefecture, the number of VIP guests in the dark dazzling hall could be counted on one hand. All of them had fought their way up level by level with their strength. In fact, star crystals could only be used to purchase VIP status from the 1st to the 7th floor. From the 8th floor onwards, no amount of money could buy it. Just the VIP status on the 6th floor alone would cost 100,000 star crystals, and the 7th floor would cost 1,000,000 star crystals. In the entire Shirluo prefecture, only the richest man in the Luo Chamber of Commerce had the spare cash to buy a VIP status. Even if other warriors had the money, they would not spend it in such a useless way. After all, the most important symbol of the famed tower was to conquer with strength. How grand! Lin Feng looked around. I didn't expect to be able to come here. Lin Yuma's beautiful eyes flashed, feeling very honored. There was not a single person around. In the huge, dark, dazzling hall, only Lin Feng and Lin Yuma were present. The atmosphere was very good. Here, any service required only a light press of a button. At other times, attendants and maids were not allowed to stay and occupy this space. Moreover, there was complete autonomy in the dark, dazzling hall. There was no need to worry about being eavesdropped on. Yuma, I want to know what happened back then. Lin Feng's eyes were bright and deep. Father, you violated the rules and brought disaster to the family. It was a huge secret. Lin Yuma looked at Lin Feng, her beautiful eyes flashing. She was smart enough to guess that Lin Feng would definitely get to the bottom of this. Lindigo, Uncle Lin has kept this secret from you. Perhaps he has his reasons. Lin Yuma hesitated for a moment, then said softly, this matter has been sealed within the family. Not many people know what happened back then, and I don't know the full story. I want to know. Lin Feng's expression was calm but firm. Pursing his lips, Lin Yuma sighed. All right, but you have to promise me one thing. Don't worry, Yuma. I won't expose my identity. Lin Feng nodded lightly, knowing Yuma's concerns. Just like how his father wanted him to hide his identity, since his father had violated the prohibition that day, then he had also been implicated. Unlike Yuma, she was directly related to him. She was intrinsically related to him, and if her identity was exposed, she might be in danger. Lin Yuma nodded and said softly, Uncle Lin was really amazing back then. Lin Feng's eyes lit up as he pricked up his ears. Housekeeper Wu told me that Uncle Lin has the family's second-grade eye, the dark spirit eye, and broke through to the star sector level at the age of 18. Lin Yuma's eyes flashed. When he saw Lin Feng, he was also shocked. He had not expected his father's strength and potential to be so strong. Hearing about his father's deeds from others and hearing the admiration and respect in Yuma's tone, Lin Feng felt very proud. This was his father, but thinking about how his father had fallen on the Tianwu continent, Lin Feng felt a sharp pain in his heart. He really wanted to know what had happened back then to cause his father to become like this. He had violated the prohibition. What prohibition had he violated? Lin Feng stared at Lin Yuma, and his right fist unconsciously clenched. Uncle Lin was not only one of the top 3 powerhouses in the family back then, but he was also an Earth-rank blacksmith second only to Master Lin Yan. It could be said that he was not only the pride of the Lin clan, but also a bright new star in Sherluo Prefecture. If Uncle Lin was still around, the Lin clan would not be in this position today. Lin Yuma shook her head gently, feeling regret in her heart. If that incident back then had not happened, she and Lindigo would probably have been no. Lin Yuma shook her head. If that incident had not happened, how could there be Lindigo? What exactly happened back then? Lin Feng's breathing was a little rapid as he looked straight at Yuma. What could have happened that could have caused his father, who was at the peak of his power, to fall into a bottomless abyss? This was definitely not a small matter. Uncle Lin Yuma bit her lips and looked at Lin Feng with a different kind of emotion in her beautiful eyes. She said slowly, "He eloped with an ancient woman." "Ah!" Lin Feng cried out in shock. His heart was in chaos. He had never imagined that the answer would be this. "Is that ancient woman my mother?" Lin Feng's expression suddenly changed. The confusion that had been plaguing him seemed to have cleared up. He had the bloodline of the ancient race. This was undeniable. He had the body of a phoenix and could absorb the blood of a phoenix. This was not something an ordinary human could do. Back in the Tianwu continent, he had vaguely sensed his mother's aura. But why did this violate the forbidden rules? Wait, elopement? If it was a free love, why did they elope? Lin Feng raised his head and looked at Lin Yuma with shining eyes. He knew very well that Yuma definitely knew the reason. Lindigo, you might not know this, but the human race and the ancient race cannot intermarry. To be more precise, the ancient race strictly forbids intermarriage with the human race. Lin Yuma's words were like a heavy bomb that landed in Lin Feng's heart. In an instant, Lin Feng understood many things. His chest rose and fell slightly. Lin Feng clenched his fists tightly, and his expression changed rapidly. Yes, among the three major races of the human race was the most insignificant existence. Even if they were all from the human race, there were differences in status. How could a lady from a wealthy family marry a beggar? The logic was clear. In the eyes of the ancient race, what was the difference between the human race and a beggar? There was a natural difference between the bloodlines of the two races. In the eyes of the ancient race, the human race was even worse than a beggar. They were merely ants that were used as cannon fodder against the demon race. He was very clear about this point. Among the three major races of the human race, the sorcerer race and the ancient race were high and mighty. Perhaps the ancient race did not treat the human race as cruelly as the sorcerer race. But in essence, there was no difference in how the two races viewed the human race. In the 100 Falls, I saw the battle between the sorcerer and the demon race. Lin Feng said softly. His eyes flashed. The sorcerer race guarded the center, the ancient race attacked from the back, and the human race was cannon fodder. They charged towards the demon race army like moths to a flame, regardless of the huge difference in strength between the two sides. To the sorcerer race and the ancient race, the human race was just a bargaining chip to deplete the demon race's strength. This was because the human race had a strong reproductive ability and a large population. That was all. They had never truly regarded the human race as an ally or a race. Elopement. Lin Feng smiled and shook his head. There was no need to ask. He could guess that the pressure must have come from the ancient race. Perhaps his mother's position in the ancient race was not small. Because of the ancient race's power, they forced his father and mother to elope. Then, as Yuma said, the family expelled his father from the family to protect himself. In fact, the family was not wrong to do so. If they insisted on protecting his father, they would just die together. There was no need. From his father's letter, it could be seen that he did not resent the family. Otherwise, he would not have allowed him to return to the family. No wonder father and Yuma did not want me to expose my identity. It's because my mother's identity is too special. Lin Feng smiled helplessly. His doubts were finally solved. Looking at Lin Feng's complicated expression, Lin Yuma wanted to say something but stopped. She did not mention that her father, Lin Jing, had been implicated because of their arranged marriage back then. She was smart. After thinking about it carefully after calming down, She naturally knew how much of Lin Feng's feelings for her was true love and how much was family. Lin Yuma hesitated, or rather, she was afraid. The first time she fell in love, her heart was already filled by Lin Feng. She did not dare to take the risk. She was afraid to change the situation. She was afraid that there might be a slight change this time and affect the entire situation. Telling Lin to go won't help. It will only make him feel more guilty, Lin Yuma thought to herself. She bit her lips and comforted herself. Lin to go. What do you plan to do next? Lin Yuma asked softly. I want to find Mother and the culprit. Lin Feng's eyes were cold. He did not hesitate at all. When Father and Mother eloped, they were still fine. However, Father, who was heavily injured, brought me and my younger brother to the Tianwu continent. During the time they eloped, something must have happened that forcefully separated our family. Most importantly, Father was directly crippled. According to Duo, Father was barely hanging on during the time in the Tianwu continent. For a star sector level warrior, even if he was just hanging on for a while, it was not a big problem for him to last for 10 or 20 years. I don't know. Lin Yuma shook her head gently. What she knew was only from housekeeper Wu. It was not everything. Basically, it should not have much to do with the family. Lin Feng's eyes flickered. He understood. Father was already one of the top 3 experts in the family back then. Furthermore, the family was forced to draw a clear line with Father. Even if they wanted to capture Father, it would not take too much effort. It was very likely that it was the ancient race. However, no matter who it was, he would not let this matter rest. Enmity was enmity. A blood feud had to be filled with blood. An eye for an eye. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. He would definitely not let the matter of the past go so easily. Because the matter of the past was brought up, a secret was revealed. Lin Feng and Lin Yuma also lost their interest in celebrating. However, they really could not feel happy. It was as if a thorn was stuck in their throats. It was extremely uncomfortable. What Yuma said was only a fragment. The one who knows the most about what happened back then is the family leader, Lin Jin. Lin Feng left the dark shine hall absent-mindedly. His eyes flickered as he pondered. Back then, the person who chased Father out of the family was the current family leader, Lin Jun. Who is the murderer? What is Mother's identity? Everything. The family leader might know everything. Lin Feng exhaled deeply. His expression kept changing. Knowing was one thing, but how could he make the family leader, Lin Jun, tell him willingly? This was undoubtedly a big problem. Lin Feng and Lin Yuma had their own thoughts as they slowly walked out of the white cloud inn. At this moment, an uproar sounded. Third update. Chapter 919. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. As soon as they stepped out of the White Cloud Inn, they saw a group of martial artists in various colored star armors. They formed a fan-shaped formation, and there were more than 10 of them. The leading martial artist was unusually burly. His height of more than 2 meters made him stand out among the crowd. The giant axe behind him was equally domineering. It was Bo Xiong. The crowd was obviously waiting for him and Yuma. At this moment, countless people had gathered around and were whispering to each other. They were all here to watch the show. The Heavenly King gang was quite powerful in Sakya district. It could be seen from the way Bo Xiong led his people to surround the inn. Lin Feng's eyes lit up instantly. He remembered what Bo Xiong said in the Redstone Hall. Bo Xiong, will let you walk out of Sakya district alive. I'll chop my head off and let you sit on it. That thunderous roar still lingered in his mind. Lin Feng sighed. He didn't expect Bo Xiong to be so stupid. He didn't even care about the county city, Lord Wang and Mo. He brought this upon himself. Pa! Lin Feng reached out his right hand calmly and shielded Yuma behind him. The latter's beautiful eyes flashed, and she felt a tinge of sweetness in her heart. She didn't go against Lin Feng's good intentions. A smart woman knew when to advance and when to retreat. Moreover, Yuma thought that Bo Xiong's strength might be as strong as a level 5 cosmic sector level, but Lindigo was stronger. Being able to kill a level 9 cosmic sector level celestial dog was enough to prove his strength. If you want to fight, I'll accompany you to the end. Lin Feng looked straight at Bo Xiong and said slowly. Every word was sonorous, like a heavy rock landing on the ground, shocking everyone. There was an uproar in the surroundings. They didn't expect this ordinary-looking young man to dare to go against the Heavenly King gang. He wasn't afraid at all. How bold! TSK, trying to be a hero, doesn't know where to look. That's right. How dare he challenge the Heavenly King gang? This kid really doesn't want his life anymore. Many people had admiration in their eyes, but even more people had mockery in their eyes. In their view, Lin Feng was simply overestimating his own ability. But in an instant, everyone was stunned. Plop, plop. With Bo Xiong taking the lead, dozens of Heavenly King factions cultivators all knelt on the ground. They didn't kneel on one knee out of courtesy, but on both knees. The scene was filled with shock, and the surroundings were completely silent. Everyone was dumbfounded, including Lin Feng and Lin Yuma. What was he doing? I have eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. Please forgive me for offending you just now, young Master Lin. Bo Xiong apologized with a shy smile, but he had long forgotten about his face. In any case, he had already lost all his face in the famous pavilion, so it wouldn't be a big deal to lose it again. A great man knew when to yield and when to stand tall. As long as he was alive, there was hope. If he offended a strong enemy because of this, and even offended the county city lord, then his death would be too unjust. What a joke. This young man in front of him could kill a celestial dog race level 9 star sector level. That was personally said by the county city lord. How could it be false? Although he couldn't see how powerful Lin Feng was, the more this was the case, the scarier it was. Thinking about how Lin Feng was calm in the Redstone Hall, it was obvious that victory was in his hands. And the most important thing was, behind Lin Feng was the powerful county city lord. He could even uproot the Heavenly King gang with just a word. Bo Xiong smiled awkwardly. Seeing that Lin Feng still didn't speak, he felt a chill in his heart. He immediately turned around and roared. Why aren't you apologizing to young Master Lin? His voice was like thunder, but it brought the surrounding people back to their senses. Did they see wrongly? The dignified Heavenly King faction's leader, Bo Xiong, was kowtowing and apologizing? This young man, where did he come from? At this moment, a loud kowtow sound came from behind Bo Xiong. I'm sorry, young Master Lin. It's my fault. I was blinded by lard. It's all my fault. Black Bull kept kowtowing and sweating profusely. He was in a dilemma now. He had offended both Lin Feng and Bo Xiong. If he didn't atone for his sins, he wouldn't even know how he died. Wow, there was an uproar in the surroundings. Everyone was whispering to each other. The way they looked at Lin Feng had completely changed. The martial artist who was mocking Lin Feng just now had his face flushed red. The contempt from before had long disappeared and was replaced by fear and dread. It was a deep fear. He had hidden his strength well. The young man in front of them had a rather powerful background. To be able to make a domineering Heavenly King kowtow and apologize on the streets, that was a miracle that had never happened in Saki District. Lin Feng looked at Yuma. Their eyes met, but they didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He thought Bo Xiong had brought people to seek revenge, but he didn't expect him to play such a trick. Now that everyone was looking at him, Lin Feng felt a headache coming on. He had undoubtedly been high profile again. Let's go, Yuma. Lin Feng nodded. Lin Yuma smiled and didn't object. As if their hearts were connected, the two of them rose into the air in an instant. They didn't pay attention to the Heavenly King faction members who were still kneeling on the ground and left directly. The surrounding crowd was left in a flurry of discussion. Bo Xiong couldn't help but let out a long sigh of relief. Although Lin Feng didn't say anything, it was obvious that he didn't intend to argue with him. It was a blessing in disguise. As for the county city lord, Bo Xiong frowned and let out a long sigh. The result was out of his control. He had done everything he could to salvage the situation. They're really fun. Lin Yuma smiled softly. They bully the weak and fear the strong. In fact, they fear the county city lord. Lin Feng smiled calmly. He understood very well. Even if he had the strength of a peak star sector level, these Heavenly King faction martial artists wouldn't throw everything aside and kneel on the street. After all, this would be a great blow to the Heavenly King faction's reputation. The main reason they knelt to him was because of the county city lord, offering Buddha with borrowed flowers. They admitted defeat. Yeah, I didn't expect to meet the county city lord at the famed tower. Lin Yuma's beautiful eyes flashed in disbelief. They were so lucky to meet the top power holder of Shirluo County. And the most important thing was, Lin Gu, are you very close to Shijishin? Lin Yuma asked curiously. You can say that friendship grows after a fight. Lin Feng smiled. He vaguely remembered the little girl who was clamoring to judge him in The Wizard of Oz. By chance, they had experienced an unforgettable battle side by side and established a deep friendship. I heard that her background is very mysterious. Now, it seems that it is indeed extraordinary. Lin Yuma's beautiful eyes flashed as she spoke softly. In her opinion, even the county city lord, Wang Yamo, seemed to be quite wary of Shijishin. She is indeed extraordinary. Lin Feng nodded. What Yama saw, he saw as well. Moreover, the county city lord was taking such good care of him, mostly because of Shijishin. White Cloud Tower, Lin Feng murmured. He was rather curious. Lin Gu, tell me how you two met, Lin Yuma said with a smile. Gossip. Lin Feng smiled. They flew quickly and disappeared in an instant. After a full 3 days and 3 nights, the first round of the preliminaries finally ended. The 10 Shirluo battle arenas all had different progressions. The fastest one lasted for 2 days and 2 nights. After all, there was a huge disparity in strength in the first 100 rounds, but after the 200th round, the strength began to average out. The last 200 rounds were even more intense. Almost every round was a battle of life and death. The difference between victory and defeat was only a thin line. Some were happy while others were sad. The competition was quite tragic. The death rate was more than 10%, and the rate of serious injuries was close to 30%. Only less than 10% of the warriors passed the battle unscathed and entered the second round of the preliminaries. In the second round, the stage 1-star sector-level warriors who entered the preliminaries would no longer be left empty. They would compete with the warriors who advanced in the first round in their strongest state and strength to enter the third round of the preliminaries. Each round was crueler than the last. Lin Clan. No wonder there is a 3-month break between each round. Lin Jin sighed. The rate of injuries in this year's Vermilion Bird Challenge is too shocking. Without enough time to rest, the severely injured warriors won't be able to fight in the second round. Lin Yin stroked his long beard and said slowly. Previously, they were still a little confused about the 3-month break, but now they completely understood. For a severely injured warrior to recover his combat strength, even 3 months might not be enough. However, at least 70% to 80% of his strength could be recovered, and he would be able to fight. Sigh, the preliminaries are indeed the place of the strong. In the first round alone, one of the 8 advanced warriors of the Lin clan died, and 3 were severely injured. Lin Jin sighed. The Lin clan was not a clan known for its martial strength. The effort spent to nurture a warrior with outstanding combat strength far exceeded that of the Wu clan in the Qianluo district. 1 death meant 1 less. It was a pity. It's not bad. At least 3 of our clansmen entered the second round. Lin Yin nodded. Including Lin Zhurao, who didn't get a bye in the first round, we have 4 clansmen participating in the second round. Yuma's opponent in the next round isn't strong. He should be able to enter the third round. Lin Zhun flipped through the battle list. The first round was already over, and the second round opponents were revealed. Miaosheng's opponent is Wu Song from the Huayan sect. He's too strong, and his chances of advancing are slim. Jiarao, on the other hand, is facing Jihua, who is also a first-stage Cosmic Realm state. They are evenly matched, and their chances of winning are 50-50. Among everyone, Lin Fan should be the one with the least suspense. His opponent should be. Lin Yin flipped through the battle list and was stunned. As though he had seen a demon, his eyes widened as he stood rooted to the ground. If I remember correctly, Lin Fan's opponent should be Wu Kai from the Rui district, who didn't get a bye in the first round. Lin Yin smiled faintly. No, it's not Wu Kai. Lin Jun shook his head in a daze. Lin Yin was surprised, and his brows furrowed. I shouldn't have remembered wrongly. Yin Lao, look. Lin Jun's eyes flashed, and he pointed at Lin Fan's name on the battle list with a bitter smile. Lin Yin looked over, only to see a row of words clearly written beside Lin Fan's name. Qinluo District, Lin Clan's Lin Feng. Huh. Lin Yin was shocked, and his eyes widened as he looked at Lin Jun. The two looked at each other in the eye. Chapter 9:20. What did you say? Lin Feng is still alive? Lam Tokti frowned. Yes, Dad. Lin Fan's eyes were cold. And that son of a bitch has already defeated Wu Kai and made it to the second round. Defeated Wu Kai? Lam Tokti was dazed for a moment. Then, he realized what Lin Fan meant. So, your opponent in the second round is him? Yes. Lin Fan wasn't scared. Lam Tokti also sneered. Are you confident? He's just a peak Star Lord. Not worth mentioning, Lin Fan said disdainfully. Lin Fan said disdainfully. With a look of disdain, he clenched his fists and snapped his fingers. Just as well. Let's settle the old and new grudges at the same time and save ourselves the trouble. Lin Fan's self-confidence had also increased greatly with his advancement in strength. He had been humiliated by Lin Feng before mainly because he was careless and lost to Lin Feng's eye technique. However, he was now a star sector level. Not only had he become stronger, but he had also entered his family's land of inheritance to cultivate. Bai Mutong was no longer what he used to be. Very good. Lam Tokti nodded in satisfaction. The confidence he saw in his son reminded him of himself in the past. Perhaps they weren't necessarily the most talented, but they would be the ones to have the last laugh, whether it was 20 years ago or 20 years later. 20 years ago, I was able to get rid of the first stumbling block. 20 years later, I'll be able to get rid of the second stumbling block. I, Lam Tokti, will get rid of all the obstacles in front of me one by one. A cold light flashed in Lin Kuei's eyes, and the corners of his mouth turned cold and sinister. Lin Jun, that old fox, thought that no one would know if he secretly arranged for his bastard son to enter the Lin family. I'll let you shoot yourself in the foot. Lam Tokti stared at Lin Fan with murderous intent and said word by word, Remember, don't leave anyone alive. Don't worry, Dad. Lin Fan's eyes were ferocious. Like father, like son. He would do the same even if his father didn't say so. He couldn't live under the same sky as his wife. Lin Feng's residence. Young master, Lin Fan is very powerful. Guanzhong's face was solemn. Oh, Zhong, you know? Lin Feng asked curiously. Guanzhong nodded. I went to the arena to watch the match. As the housekeeper, he had to do his best to assist Lin Feng. Since Lin Feng had regained his status as a participant, as the housekeeper, he naturally had to collect information on Lin Feng's next opponent. Although there was a video message, it was far from being able to see it with his own eyes. In the first round, Lin Fan was the same as Young Master. He didn't reveal his true strength, but the strength he showed was already extremely terrifying. He was invincible in close combat and long-range attacks. And his strongest point was, it's his White Mu Eye, the second grade eye of the Lin clan. It's known for its offensive capabilities. Lin Feng's eyes twinkled. He was curious as to how Guanzhong knew. The last point was told to me by Miss Yuma, Young Master. Guanzhong added, Yuma is so attentive. Lin Feng felt a warm feeling in his heart. She had taken care of every detail for him. It's a little troublesome. Lin Feng frowned slightly. In terms of strength, he was confident that he could defeat Lin Fan. However, his strongest point in the past had now become his biggest constraint. The Vastar eyes were in deep sleep. Not only did it cause him to lose his strongest weapon, but it also caused his life spirit to be completely naked. In terms of defense, the life spirit was inferior to the human soul. The life spirit was known for its offensive capabilities, but his life spirit had lost its offensive capabilities. Of course, with the protection of the Phoenix natal chart, his life spirit was not afraid of being destroyed. However, what about being seriously injured? With Lin Fan's methods, once his life spirit was seriously injured and unconscious, he would definitely kill him without hesitation. There's still 3 months. I'll think of a solution slowly. Lin Feng nodded. He didn't care too much. At worst, he would fight him head-on. With his strength, his chances of winning were still quite high. Lin Feng and Lin Fan were fighting their own battles. However, clan leader Lin Jun was worried sick. He had a headache. The palm of his hand was flesh, and so was the back of his hand. Although Lin Feng didn't have the bloodline of the Lin clan, he represented the Lin clan. They were bound together for good or ill. To a certain extent, he was no different from Lin Fan, Lin Yuma, and the others. However, Yin Lao, do you think we should help Lin Feng? Lin Jun was hesitant. Logically speaking, regardless of Lin Feng's strength, entering the second round of the preliminaries was already a glory for the Lin clan. Unlike the Wu clan, the Lin clan was relatively wealthy. They could use the clan's ability to forge weapons to properly equip Lin Feng and improve his strength. Although a martial artist's strength was important, equipment was also not to be underestimated. A good astral weapon or astral treasure was enough to increase a martial artist's strength by several times. However, if they helped Lin Feng, wouldn't they be fighting against Lin Fan? If they didn't help Lin Feng and only helped Lin Fan, it would show the difference between being close and distant. Lin Yin stroked his long beard. His dim eyes flickered. Actually, it doesn't matter what others think. The most important thing is what Lin Feng thinks. Lin Jin nodded thoughtfully. He understood Lin Yan's meaning. Lin Feng was a talent. Not only was he a talent in forging weapons, but he was also able to enter the second round of the preliminaries of the Vermilion Bird Challenge. It was enough to see Lin Feng's martial talent and combat strength. In fact, in Lin Jin's opinion, Lin Feng's value was even higher than Lin Fan's. Moreover, we can't ignore Yuma. Lin Yin sighed. The word love was too complicated. If they ignored Lin Feng, what would Yuma think? In this year, Yuma had changed. It was clear how important Lin Feng was to her. Sigh. Lin Jin couldn't help but shake his head. He felt a headache coming on. This civil war made it difficult for him to advance or retreat. The first round of the preliminaries ended under everyone's expectations. Nearly 5,000 people who had advanced were recuperating from their injuries and preparing for battle. The atmosphere in Sherluo County was fiery. The first round was just the beginning. The remaining 3 rounds would be more difficult than the last. In the second round, Stage 1 Cosmic Sector State martial artists would participate. In the third round, Stage 2 Cosmic Sector State martial artists would appear. In the final round, Stage 3 Cosmic Sector State martial artists would appear. The final 1,000 martial artists would be the representatives of Sherluo County. The winner would enter the main competition. 3 months seemed to be a long time. However, for most martial artists, it was quite short. Perhaps a single secluded cultivation would exhaust all of it. Lin Feng's residence. Among the martial artists who had advanced, Lin Feng was probably the most idle. Buried in a book, Lin Feng was flipping through the Starfruit illustrated handbook page by page, reading it carefully. He was in an engraving formation with 300 times the time, but Lin Feng didn't cultivate. He just flipped through the book. In fact, for the current Lin Feng, the use of cultivation was quite weak. Peak Cosmic Lord. Although Lin Feng could store extra astral power, there was only so much he could use. Besides, with the Phoenix natal chart, Lin Feng's astral power was inexhaustible to a certain extent. It was useless to continue cultivating. As for star cultivation, Lin Feng's total star cultivation had already reached level 10. His single special system star cultivation was also level 10. He was only one step away from advancing to the cosmic sector state, the breakthrough of his soul. However, the damage to his vast star I had greatly reduced the power of his soul. It was just like a lively martial artist who was now sickly. Even if he wanted to cultivate, he was unable to do so. More importantly, the Phoenix natal chart's restrictions meant that even the breakthrough of his soul would be in vain. Lin Feng could only break through by lighting up the fourth natal chart. Well, why can't ordinary people absorb any of the star fruits? Are there really no exceptions? Lin Feng frowned slightly, feeling that this was a problem. There was one thing he had to take care of: his mother's health. Ever since he could remember, his mother's body had been very weak. Her foundation was too weak. Although she had been nourished a lot, she was still very weak. She might collapse at any moment. His father still had 10,000 years to be slowly cured, but his mother couldn't be delayed any longer. Lin Feng closed the Star Fruit Illustrated Handbook and shook his head. He had spent 10 days reading all the information about the star fruits, but he still couldn't find a solution. Star fruits were born from the essence of heaven and earth and were of a higher grade than celestial fruits. However, ordinary people couldn't afford them, especially ordinary people like his mother, who had a weak body. Zhong should be back soon, Lin Feng murmured. Then, he stepped out of the time engraving array. Staying here for 10 days was equivalent to less than 2 hours outside. Young master, here are 5,750 star crystals. Guanzhong bowed and said. Okay. Lin Feng nodded and didn't ask for details. Don't doubt people you use, and don't use people you don't trust. Moreover, this amount of money was nothing to him. He had only sold some star fruits and obtained the soulless sword in the 100 Falls. It was an indigo effulgence weapon, which was worth at least 50,000 star crystals. Keep the change for the mansion's expenses in case you need it. Lin Feng took the 5,000 star crystals. It was enough as long as he had enough money. He had to leave for a while and return to the 100 Falls to cultivate. There were still 3 months before the second round of preliminaries. He couldn't waste it. He had to cross the star sector level hurdle. He didn't know how to light up the Earth astrolabe, but he could find the answer to the water astrolabe in the 100 Falls. However, before that, he had to go to the White Cloud Tower. Okay, young master. Guanzhong nodded. Although he was used to Lin Feng's generosity, he still couldn't help but sigh. Although it was just a small change, 750 star crystals was 75 billion Do spirit coins. Many star sector level warriors didn't have that much money. Guanzhong's wealth was only about 3,000 star crystals, which was not considered poor among star sector level warriors. However, compared to Lin Feng, it paled in comparison. Lin Feng smiled faintly and was about to leave. He paused and asked Guanzhong, by the way, Zhong, do you know of any star fruits that can be absorbed by people with weak bodies? Guanzhong frowned and pondered for a while. He shook his head and said, no, young master. Lin Feng nodded and didn't say anything else. He was just casually asking with a sliver of hope. However, Guanzhong continued, young master, is it possible to use other methods? Lin Feng was startled. Chapter 921. Young Master, do you mean to let an ordinary person become a Star Mang rank martial artist? Guanzhong asked. Lin Feng's eyes brightened. He replied softly, gazing at Guanzhong. The Star Mang rank was the titled martial god in Sky Martial Continent. Becoming a titled martial god was a true transformation of the body. In the 9 provinces, it meant that one had officially entered the circle of martial artists. Different from Sky Martial Continent, Do Ling World's spiritual qi was abundant. From birth to adulthood, a baby would automatically absorb spiritual qi. Basically, in Do Ling World, one could easily enter the circle of martial artists with just a little bit of training. Easy as pie. If that's the case, you can just use the Star Mang pill, young master. Although Guanzhong was curious, he still answered honestly. Lin Feng shook his head. He had also studied the Star Mang pill before. The Star Mang pill was made by pill masters using various star fruits as raw materials, using complicated methods to refine it. Using the heaven and earth's fortune, the star fruit's greatest potential could be used to increase a star fruit's effect by 30%, 50%, or even 10%. However, The Starmang pill and the star fruit were born from the same source. Its foundation was still the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. Her body is too weak. She can't withstand the power of the Starmang pill. Lin Feng said softly. The people of Sky Martial Continent were different from the people of Doling World. There was a huge difference in their physiques. The ordinary people of Doling World could withstand the Starmang pill, but his mother couldn't. Quite weak. Guanzhong began to understand. Yes, Lin Feng muttered, not even 1/10,000 of an ordinary person's. In Doling World, even if one didn't cultivate, the body of an ordinary person was comparable to the experts of Sky Martial Continent. Just like a ferocious tiger, no matter how weak it was, its huge body was still there. His mother's body, compared to the ordinary people of Sky Martial Continent, was relatively weak, like a weak grass. That's not difficult, Guanzhong muttered. Young master, you can prepare a pond and dilute the Starmang pill to 1/10,000 of its original concentration. Although the absorption speed will be slower by 10,000 times, it can still be absorbed completely. If you want to be more careful, you can first dilute it to a concentration of 1/100,000 th or even 1/100,000 th to be safe. Step by step, little by little, it's not impossible, Guanzhong suggested. It resounded like thunder in the ears. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. That's right, dilute it. Lin Feng suddenly laughed heartily and nodded heavily. On the other hand, he had gone into a dead end. He had blindly wanted to finish this path as quickly as possible. He didn't want the path in the middle to be full of bumps. Although Zhong's words were much more roundabout, and the absorption speed was 10,000 times or even 100,000 times slower, so what? Mother doesn't need to increase her strength immediately. She only needs to slowly improve her physique. There's plenty of time. Sure enough, it's better to travel 10,000 miles than to read 10,000 books. Zhong, you're still the best. Lin Feng smiled. The older, the wiser. Zhong's rich experience had indeed helped him a lot. The biggest problem was easily solved. Young master overpraises me. Guanzhong smiled slightly. To be able to help Lin Feng made him feel relieved. It had always been Lin Feng helping him, but he had nothing to repay him with. Guanzhong cupped his hands. Young master, leave this matter to me. I wonder how many starlight pills young master wants. How much for one? Lin Feng asked. Low-grade starlight pills are 1 million Do spirit coins each. Medium-grade starlight pills are 10 million Do spirit coins each. High-grade starlight pills are 1 star crystal each. Top-grade starlight pills are 10 star crystals each. Guanzhong said honestly. The exact price may fluctuate, but the difference won't be too big. Lin Feng nodded. Just like astral treasures, starlight pills were divided into high, medium, low, and even top grade. Different grades, the energy contained, and the effects are all different. A difference of 1 grade was a huge difference. Help me buy 10 top-grade starlight pills, 100 high-grade starlight pills, and buy as many medium and low-grade starlight pills as you have. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. Buy as many as you have? Guanzhong was startled, afraid that he had misheard. However, he didn't know why Lin Feng wanted so many starlight pills. If it was to nurture warriors, he could just go to the slave market and buy Star Lord warriors. Not only were they loyal, but they were also cheap. However, if it wasn't to nurture warriors, what was the point of buying so many starlight pills? Yes, Lin Feng's tone was calm. Although medium and low-grade starlight pills had slightly different effects, they were still starlight pills. Perhaps the absorption would be slower, or the energy would be less, and there would be more impurities. However, it didn't need to be so perfect. These middle and low-grade starlight pills, he could give them to the hunting martial artists. By then, there would be many more titled martial gods in the Tianwu continent. It would be beneficial to the development of the kingdom of Meru. As for him, it was just a small matter. Here are 2,000 star crystals. Take it first. If it's not enough, I'll add more. Lin Feng took out the star crystals and said slowly, I'll leave this matter to you. Zhong, I have something to do. Yes, young master. Guanzhong replied sincerely. A huge problem had been solved. Lin Feng's lips curled up, and he felt much more relaxed. It was easier than he had imagined. His mother and sister would be able to reach the Starlight Realm immediately. After that, he could use spirit fruits, immortal fruits, and starlight fruits to slowly raise their strength. In terms of wealth, he wasn't inferior to other star sector level warriors. Not to mention nurturing a few people, it would be easy for him to nurture thousands of them. The most important thing was to have a solid foundation. For a bucket to be filled with water, the bucket must be able to withstand the weight of the water. The Douling world indeed has everything. Lin Feng nodded slightly. There was nothing he couldn't do, only unexpected. In this place, humans had already entered a complete civilization system. With a faint smile, Lin Feng stepped into the teleportation array. He could directly enter Sakya District from his own residence. It was quite convenient. Sakya District. Mwah. After coming out of the teleportation array, Lin Feng remembered something. By the way, where's the White Cloud Tower? Lin Feng smiled bitterly, forgetting to ask Shizhishin. After thinking for a while, Lin Feng looked around. There was a sea of people, and the place was extraordinarily bustling. Sakya District is indeed one of the 9 districts, but it's much more lively than Qianluo District. Lin Feng smiled. Not to mention, this was the most central place in Shiluo County, the head of the 9 districts. Just from the fact that the preliminaries were held here, it was easy to tell. Let's ask others. With Shizhishin's status, the White Cloud Tower should be very famous, Lin Feng thought. He didn't know the way, but the other warriors in Sakya District should know. However, things in the world were often unexpected. After asking more than a dozen warriors, he didn't find anything. This included the waiters in restaurants, the maids in hotels, the merchants, and even many Star Lords. However, without exception, none of them had even heard of the White Cloud Tower. If he wasn't familiar with Shizhishin and newer personality, Lin Feng would have wondered if Shizhishin was lying to him. Was there really a White Cloud Tower here? Lin Feng frowned. He didn't expect to be stumped by such a small problem. While he was thinking, all of a sudden, loud shouts came from afar. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. 4 brawny men in star armors were walking out of a restaurant. Their faces were red, and they were staggering. Their burly bodies had a terrifying aura. Everyone around them avoided them, as if they were afraid of the 4 brawny men. The 4 brawny men didn't show any mercy. They shouted fiercely, "Get out of the way! Son of a b****, don't block the way! What are you looking at? I'll kill you with one slap." They were domineering and unscrupulous. The 4 brawny Star Lords were very arrogant. However, no one dared to say anything. They all backed off. Even the Star Sector level warriors frowned and ignored them. They had a powerful background. Just in time, Lin Feng's eyes glowed. Coincidentally, he happened to know one of the 4 brawny men. *CK. I'm so unlucky today. Black Ox was speechless. First, he was given the cold shoulder and suffered a hidden loss. Then, he asked his boss for help, but even his boss was in trouble. When he returned to the Heavenly King's gang, he was scolded badly. He had to kneel and kowtow in a famous building. He was utterly humiliated. That wasn't all. The worst thing was that he was demoted. He had risked his life in the Heavenly King's gang for decades, but everything was gone in one day. There will be other places for us. With our boss's strength, there's no place he can't go. That's right. The Heavenly King's gang's actions are really disappointing. Boss, you fought so hard. You've only made one mistake, and now you're back to square one. When the Black Bull heard this, anger flashed in its eyes, but there was also a deep sense of helplessness. What could he do? He had offended the city lord this time. Even the leader of the Heavenly King's gang didn't dare to say anything in front of the city lord. This was power, this was influence. In my opinion, the most despicable person is that brat Lin Feng. Everything is his fault. That's right. If it wasn't for him, all these things wouldn't have happened. Everyone chimed in one after another, but it hit the Black Yak's heart. If it wasn't for Lin Feng, he wouldn't be in such a miserable state. Black Ox gritted his teeth, and a fierce look flashed across his eyes. Suddenly, "Are you talking about me?" A calm voice rang out, and Black Ox and his three subordinates were stunned. They stared blankly ahead. The crowd had dispersed, and only a thin and small figure was left. He stood there calmly with a faint smile on his face. "Wasn't that hiss?" Black Ox gasped. His eyes widened, and he instantly sobered up. He would never forget this young man's face, even if he was beaten to death. However, while Black Ox was sober, his three subordinates behind him were still in a daze. One of the men with a scar on his face said arrogantly, "Who are you? How dare you block my way? You be *TCH. You must be tired of living. Shut the *CK up." Black Bull glared at the man with the scar on his face and roared. Beads of cold sweat dripped down from his forehead. Hainyo ignored his three subordinates, who were completely stunned. He hurriedly turned his head and revealed a flattering smile. Young Master Lin, what brings you here?" "The outbreak started on Monday. Today and tomorrow are the weekend." Chapter 922. The surroundings were completely silent. Even the onlookers were dumbfounded. Mr. Lin? To be able to make Black Bull, who had always been a bully, be so respectful, this Mr. Lin, who was dressed in black martial attire and it didn't look like a person of status. What was his background? The onlookers looked at each other and felt their hearts palpitate. They had never heard of this name before. Black Bull's three subordinates were also staring at each other, unable to recover from their shock. They still didn't know what had happened. "I was just passing by." Lin Feng smiled faintly. Normally, he wouldn't pay attention to people who bullied the weak and feared the strong. But right now, he needed his help. Passing by, Black Bull's face darkened as he muttered to himself. He was really unlucky today. How could he meet this devil, this god of plague, when he was just drinking? "What did you say?" Lin Feng smiled. "No, nothing." Black Bull smiled flatteringly and said respectfully, "Mr. Lin, what can I do for you?" His voice was full of flattery. The onlookers started to talk among themselves, but Black Bull didn't care at all. Losing face once was no big deal. Losing face twice was no big deal. He was ready to risk it all. At least, he wouldn't offend this god of plague again. "Do you know where the White Cloud Tower is?" Lin Feng went straight to the point. Heavenly King Gang seemed to be quite powerful in Sakya District. Others might not know, but as the local tyrant, Heavenly King Gang must know. White Cloud Tower. Black Bull frowned, confused. After thinking for a while, he still couldn't find an answer. Black Bull turned his head and stared at them. "Are you three idiots? Do you know where the White Cloud Tower is?" The three burly men had already sobered up. They looked at Black Bull and Lin Feng in shock, shaking their heads like a rattle drum. Lin Feng frowned. This time he was really worried. Even the local tyrant didn't know where the White Cloud Tower was. Shi Jixin's residence was really mysterious. Wait, Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Shi Jixin and the County City Lord are so close, and from the way the County City Lord spoke, he seemed to be trying to please her. Shi Jixin's background might be even stronger than the County City Lord's. Lin Feng's eyes were burning. The events that had happened not long ago were still vivid in his mind. With Shi Jixin's personality, she definitely wouldn't lie. There's no doubt that the White Cloud Tower is in Sakya District. But even the local tyrant doesn't know. That means this place, Lin Feng seemed to be deep in thought. He looked at the terrified Black Bull and said slowly, "Do you know where you can't enter the Sakya District?" "Can't enter?" Black Bull was startled. Young Master Lin is referring to a place that ordinary martial artists can't enter. Lin Feng pointed at the Black Bull and then at himself. "For example, you and me." "Oh." Black Yak understood this time and nodded. "Yes, of course." "Where?" Lin Feng's eyes flashed. Sure enough, it was as he had expected. "There are many." Black Bull pondered. Sakya District has a long history and many ancient and mysterious forces exist there. Ordinary martial artists can't enter at all. Just the famous buildings alone have many secrets. No one can enter the 10th floor and above. Lin Feng frowned. "But which one of them has anything to do with White Cloud?" White cloud. Black Bull scratched his head. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. Yes, yes, Cloud Mountain. Yes, it's the 1,000-layer Cloud Mountain. 1,000-layer Cloud Mountain? Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Hearing the name, it did seem to match the White Cloud Tower. Young Master Lin, do you need me to lead the way? Seeing that Lin Feng didn't know the way, Black Bull quickly tried to please him. All right. Lin Feng smiled calmly and didn't stand on ceremony. Since someone was leading the way, it would save him a lot of trouble. Young Master Lin, this is the 1,000-layer Cloud Mountain. Black Bull pointed ahead. Looking in the direction Black Bull pointed, Lin Feng's eyes lit up slightly. It was a huge mountain that occupied a large area. It was situated in the middle of a white cloud. The clouds and mist gave off an illusory feeling. It was as if one was enveloped by 1,000 layers of white clouds. No wonder it's called the 1,000-layer Cloud Mountain. Lin Feng nodded. As far as his eyes could see, the mountain was full of vitality and greenery. However, there didn't seem to be anything special about it. Young Master Lin, don't underestimate this Cloud Mountain. Black Bull's expression was serious. He said slowly, until now, no one knows what's at the top of the Cloud Mountain. There seems to be a natural maze in the area enveloped by the white clouds. Martial artists who entered lost their way. Usually, when they woke up, they were already at the foot of the mountain. Oh! Lin Feng raised his head and looked up. Judging from the height, the white clouds had already covered the mountain from the waist up. It felt as if only half of the mountain was left. According to Black Bull's words, this 1,000-layer Cloud Mountain was really mysterious. Could it be that Shi Jixin wants me to go in on purpose? Lin Feng thought to himself. However, he shook his head. If it was Yuma, it might be possible. However, Shi Jixin, it was impossible. Let's stop here. Thank you. Lin Feng looked at Black Bull and nodded. From the beginning to the end, he didn't have much enmity towards Black Bull. He bullied the weak and feared the strong. He had already learned his lesson, and this time he had indeed helped him. Whether it was out of intention or flattery, he had helped him. If Lin Feng continued to be calculated with him, he would undoubtedly be too petty. Moreover, this kind of petty person was still quite useful to a certain extent. For example, without him, Lin Feng wouldn't have arrived here so quickly. Hearing the word, thank you, Black Bull seemed to be flattered. He widened his eyes. Young Master Lin, let's go. Take care of yourself in the future. Lin Feng smiled faintly. Without waiting for Black Bull to speak, he had already flown into the mountain like a gust of wind. Black Bull was left behind with a face full of shock. His eyes immediately lit up with joy. Lin Feng's words meant that he had written off everything that had happened between them. 1,000-layer Cloud Mountain. What a strong pressure. Lin Feng's eyes flickered. The higher he went, the closer he got to the 1,000-layer Cloud Mountain, the more he felt a strong pressure. It felt as if there was a powerful existence looking down at him from the top of the mountain. Although he felt that it was ridiculous, Lin Feng didn't care. His eyes flashed with determination. He would never back down. I wonder if the White Cloud Tower is really up there. Lin Feng said softly. He wasn't sure. According to Black Bull, there was a high chance. Looking at the area covered by the white clouds, Lin Feng's eyes flickered. He would know once he tried. Besides, he also wanted to know what was so special about this 1,000-layer Cloud Mountain. What secrets did it have? I'm here. Looking at the white clouds, Lin Feng's lips curled into a faint smile. This was also a challenge. At the top of the mountain, white clouds filled the air. It was a very ordinary pagoda, and it looked extremely strange. There were no other buildings in the surroundings. There was only this one tower. It was ordinary and ordinary, but because of its geographical location, it was no longer ordinary. This was the White Cloud Tower that Lin Feng was looking for. The person with the greatest power in Shiluo County lived there. It should be said that he was the manager of order. Saint Shakira. Oh, with his hands behind his back, Shakira looked down with burning eyes. With his strength, he could clearly see Lin Feng below, even if there were thousands of layers of white clouds. As for the oppressive might earlier, it was he who had released it. In his 20s, Phoenix constellation, Peak Star Lord, he is Lin Feng. Shakyara's expression was calm. Gazing at Lin Feng, he felt a little curious. Such a little guy who didn't look very strong actually had the strength to kill a celestial dog of the 7th level star sector state by himself? It seems that there are many secrets hidden, Shakyara said softly. He would never suspect that his daughter was lying, because that was absolutely impossible. As far as he knew, Lin Feng not only killed a celestial dog of the 7th level star sector state by himself, but he also helped his daughter kill a celestial dog of the 9th level star sector state. Moreover, just when everyone thought he was dead, he appeared 1 year later, safe and sound. Chapter 923. A Maze Array. After stepping into it, Lin Feng knew what the Black Bull was talking about. The surroundings were white, and there was no sense of direction. This place was like an independent space. With the natural spatial array as the source, it completely enveloped the entire area from the mountainside to the top. The white clouds drifted, and every place felt exactly the same. How could he break through? Whoosh, whoosh. Lin Feng's body was as fast as lightning, and his expression was solemn. He sped for the time it took to brew a cup of tea. With his speed, he could probably go around the entire Sherluo County. However, the surroundings were still white clouds, and nothing had changed. There was no use in moving upwards. Up here, direction seemed to have lost its meaning. Wandering around like a headless fly was just a waste of energy. However, what could he do? He had to find a way out. It was not his style to admit defeat so easily. There must be a way, Lin Feng thought to himself. He looked around with bright eyes, slowly slowing down and observing carefully. At this moment, on the top of the tower, Shakyara looked down with an indifferent expression. Although Lin Feng was in the array, he could see him clearly. After all, he was the one who set up and controlled the mist cloud array. Otherwise, how could it have such power? Let's see how good your comprehension is. Shakyara's eyes flickered. In the array, Lin Feng furrowed his brows and flew around. If I had the Vastar eyes, I wouldn't be so restrained. Lin Feng sighed slightly, feeling a little helpless. After losing them, he realized the importance of the eyes. However, he had relied too much on them in the past. If he was in his peak state, he would be able to see the trajectory of the array, even if he didn't use his self-state. It was just like when he saw the engraved formation that day. Even if he couldn't practice and break it, he could at least see and understand the profoundness of this formation. From there, he could find a way out. Unlike now, when he was completely confused. What's so special about this array? Lin Feng's eyes sparkled as he muttered softly. They flew slowly, and all they could see was white clouds. It was as if there was nothing else here. Everything was just white clouds, endless white clouds. Slowly coming to a stop, Lin Feng crossed his arms in front of his chest and pressed his right hand against his lips. 1,000-layered cloud mountain. White cloud tower. Both of them have the word yin, and this place, they are also clouds. Lin Feng nodded thoughtfully as he thought to himself. Clearly, if the white cloud pagoda was really within the 1,000-layered cloud mountain, the secret of this place would definitely be related to one word, clouds. Formations are different from illusions. The formation of a formation requires a pillar. It can't be formed directly, Lin Feng murmured. Although he didn't know much about formations, he still knew a lot of basic knowledge, including the illusion that he used Yu Miao to cast. It was actually a manifestation of a formation. The pillar was his own eyes and Yu Miao's existence. In this array, it should be these seemingly inconspicuous white clouds. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. The more inconspicuous something was, the more important it was. It was just like a high-rise building. Without the bricks, how could it be built? Formations were also a type of building. These white clouds should be the bricks of this formation. After slowly figuring it out, Lin Feng began to understand. The key lies in how these bricks were placed. Since he had made up his mind, Lin Feng no longer hesitated. Instead of searching everywhere, He might as well focus on one direction and move forward like a blind man crossing a river. Perhaps he could really reach the other side of the river. Clouds. What's so special about these clouds? Lin Feng looked around, up, down, left, and right, constantly sizing up the clouds. The clouds were connected to each other, and it felt as if every cloud was connected to another cloud. It was as if there was an invisible rope tying the two together. Different from normal clouds, these clouds did not move. They were like scarecrows, only stopping. It was more in line with his inference of pillars. Wait, if they are not real clouds. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Perhaps there are some secrets hidden in them? His heart stirred. The more Lin Feng thought about it, the more likely it was. Of course, there was nothing special about the real clouds. However, these fake clouds were very likely hiding some kind of existence that he did not know about. For example, whoosh. Starlight flashed in Lin Feng's hand. He infused it into a cloud in front of him. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. As expected, he could actually feel the existence of the constellation energy. These clouds actually contained quite a lot of constellation energy. It was very powerful. What's the use of this constellation energy? Also, why can't I feel the constellation energy hidden in the clouds at all? As he thought about it, Lin Feng was very curious. He continued to infuse his astral power into it and did not feel any rejection. This is strange. Lin Feng pondered for a moment, but he didn't stop channeling his astral powers. The constellation energy contained in the clouds gave him a strange feeling. It was like a piece of firewood waiting to be ignited. Lin Feng's astral powers were that tiny flame. Chi. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. As the constellation energy continued to infuse, the feeling became deeper and deeper. It was as if he was getting closer to that level, that point. Suddenly, there was a sound as if a key had opened the lock. Got it. Lin Feng looked at the clouds in front of him. The feeling was very strong. The clouds that originally existed were now translucent. This was because in the middle of the clouds, there was a faint glow of starlight. The two types of energy were compatible. One of them was his astral power. The other was the constellation energy that was originally contained in the clouds. Interesting. Lin Feng smiled. He seemed to have unraveled a little bit of the mystery. In a split second, he moved to the front of another cloud. Lin Feng reached out his hand again. His astral power continued to infuse. Soon, whoosh, the same ray of light lit up, like a star shining brightly. It was very similar to the first cloud. Again, Lin Feng didn't stop. He immediately flew towards the third white cloud. Since he had found the matching point, there was no need to hesitate. The starlight in his hand shone brightly. Lin Feng's eyes were filled with hope and curiosity. He lit up the clouds one by one with a determined look. His intuition told him that the secret must be hidden in these clouds. At the top of the pagoda, Shakira revealed a faint smile. Young man, you are quite thoughtful. My efforts were not wasted. Shakira nodded gently. He was the one who set up the array of mist clouds. He was also the owner of the constellation energy. With the strength of a saint, how could Lin Feng discover the constellation energy hidden in the array? In fact, if other martial artists dared to infuse astral power into the clouds, it was undoubtedly equivalent to breaking the array. They would definitely be attacked by the array of mist clouds. But Lin Feng was an exception. You have to grasp the opportunity yourself, Shakira said calmly. One cloud after another. Although it took a lot of astral power to light up each cloud, it was not a problem for Lin Feng. He spent a total of 24 hours. Lin Feng finally completed the task. Thousand-layer cloud mountain is indeed as its name suggests, Lin Feng said softly. He had walked through the entire array and lit up a total of 1,000 clouds. This time, he would not get lost again. But it is completely sealed. There are a total of 10 layers in the array. Each layer is further divided into 10 layers. The layers are interconnected and the clouds are constantly changing. These clouds not only contain the constellation energy, but also a considerable amount of spatial energy. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He had completely understood. These clouds were not as motionless as he saw them. Instead, with the activation of the array, these clouds were constantly changing positions, just like two chess pieces on a chessboard constantly changing positions. He could not see the pattern, but the speed of change was extremely fast, and there was no fixed pattern. It was quite mysterious. No wonder martial artists would get lost after entering, Lin Feng said softly. Even if he lit up these 1,000 clouds, it took a lot of effort. Especially the last few dozen clouds. It was even more strenuous. Including now, he seemed to be constantly changing his position. It was not him who was moving, but the clouds around him were constantly changing positions. But the most important thing was, where was the exit? In these 24 hours, he had walked through every corner of the array. Lighting up all the 1,000 clouds explained everything, but there was nothing like a teleportation array or a light screen. There seemed to be nothing here, only these clouds. Even if they were all lit up now, it was still the same. No, there's also spatial energy. Lin Feng nodded. And the constellation energy. 3 kinds of existence. They were all related to each other. However, he still couldn't see through the mysteries of this great formation. The possibility of breaking the array is very small, Lin Feng said lightly, although he lit up these clouds and matched the constellation energy. But it was just matching. It was impossible for him to break the array with his strength. According to the Black Bull, this place has been here for a long time. If it was so easy to break the array, there would be martial artists stronger than me everywhere. This array would not have existed for so long. After all, he was only a peak Star Lord. In Shirluo County, Star Sector-level martial artists were not rare. Spatial energy. Can I use this spatial energy? Lin Feng frowned, but he had no idea what was going on. He was no stranger to spatial energy. In fact, he was very familiar with it. But the spatial energy in front of him was linked to each other in the array, forming a complete whole. It was perfectly combined with the 1,000 clouds and the constellation energy, without any flaws. What exactly is the crux of the matter? Lin Feng muttered. He stared at the white clouds, but they were all the same size, just like chess pieces. There was no difference at all. The only difference was constellation energy. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. Could it be, starting tomorrow, breakout? Chapter 924. Closing his eyes, Lin Feng immersed himself in it. The constellation energy of the clouds around him was ignited by his star power. It was as if a mark had been imprinted, and it was especially clear in this maze formation. In his mind, there seemed to be a huge chessboard. Although the size of each chess piece was the same, there were slight differences. The reason for these differences was constellation energy. Lin Feng opened his eyes in a split second, his eyes gleaming. Among the thousands of clouds, none of them have the same constellation energy. They are all different. Lin Feng thought to himself. He understood. Maybe the constellation energy was so huge that he couldn't see it. However, he could feel the activation of his astral power. The stronger the constellation energy, the more star power he needed to activate it. It was like lighting a fire. The bigger the firewood, the stronger the flame needed to ignite it. It was a matter of proportion. If the difference in the constellation energy contains the way to solve the formation. Lin Feng nodded thoughtfully. In an instant, Lin Feng was like a phantom, flying quickly. 15 minutes later, that's it. Lin Feng's eyes were shining. It was just as he had expected. All the clouds are constantly changing their positions. Only this one, there is no change. Lin Feng clenched his fist and was overjoyed. He was getting closer and closer to the riddle. He slowly opened it. Ta! Lin Feng jumped up and landed on the still white cloud number 1. However, the white cloud didn't change at all when he stepped on it. Lin Feng frowned and thought to himself, what should I do next? He glanced around casually. The few white clouds around him were constantly changing their space. Suddenly, Lin Feng's eyes flashed. He saw white cloud number 2 on the right flashed and disappeared in an instant. Lin Feng was surprised. Almost at the same time, A white cloud on the left also changed into white cloud number 2, but it also disappeared in a flash. The speed was quite fast. It's faster than normal. Lin Feng's heart trembled, but he didn't panic. Closing his eyes, he focused his consciousness again. There were a total of 3 white clouds connected to white cloud number 1, and these 3 white clouds were completely separated. One by one, they changed to white cloud number 2. It was as if there was some kind of rule, which was very strange. Sure enough, they correspond to each other. Lin Feng pondered. This was obviously not a coincidence. We stepped on a white cloud 1, white cloud 2 appeared. What about stepping on white cloud number 2? Lin Feng's heart stirred. He instantly opened his eyes, and his gaze fell on the white cloud on the right. Lin Feng estimated the time in his heart. Just as the white cloud changed again, Lin Feng's figure suddenly dashed out. He arrived just in time for the second white cloud to appear. The timing was perfect. Ta! Lin Feng landed on the white cloud and moved. It felt as if he had stepped into another space from one dimension, and everything around him changed in an instant. White cloud number 1 just now seemed to have disappeared, and 3 identical white clouds appeared around him. The most shocking thing was that white cloud number 3 appeared in an instant. One cloud after another. Could this be the way to break the formation? But is it that easy? Lin Feng muttered to himself, feeling quite puzzled. But there was no other way at the moment. No matter what, this stupid method was worth a try. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Lin Feng's body was as fast as lightning, and he was as fast as the wind. One white cloud followed another, and the speed of change was extremely fast. 1,000 white clouds seemed to be a lot, but it was extremely easy to step into them. After a while, Lin Feng was almost done, but he was still frowning. No, it shouldn't be like this. Where did the problem come from? Lin Feng moved lightly. Although he continued to break the formation, he felt more and more that something was wrong. It was as if some kind of mistake had occurred, but he couldn't detect it. White cloud number 998. White cloud number 999. White cloud number 1000. Ta! Lin Feng dashed toward the 1000th white cloud. But in an instant, bang! A huge force came from the white cloud. The powerful constellation energy seemed to resist, and in an instant, it blocked Lin Feng. His chest sank, and Lin Feng's expression turned serious. He somersaulted and landed steadily, but his eyes were shining. I was right. It's not that simple. Lin Feng nodded. This time, he was completely sure. If this was really a feasible method, the maze formation would have been broken. But obviously not. What's wrong? Lin Feng was getting more and more interested. It was as if he had just solved the puzzle, and now he was seeing the first clue. The facts proved that his idea was not wrong, but there might be some key points that were missing, so the whole process was messed up. It was a mistake, and the whole thing fell apart. Formation. What is a formation? The method to break the formation. What kind of secret does it contain, or what kind of rule does it follow? Lin Feng pondered for a moment, feeling a little powerless. When it came to using the knowledge, he regretted not having enough. He did not know much about the way of formation, and only had some rough knowledge. If it's the inscription formation, I might know more. Lin Feng smiled, trying to find joy in the midst of bitterness. Oh, right, the inscription formation is also a kind of formation. Are there any similarities between the two, or can I learn from it? Lin Feng's eyes lit up, and the scene of drawing the inscription formation that day appeared in his mind. The scenes of the past played back like a video. Lin Feng smiled indifferently. At that time, he had just entered Shiluo County, and he did not know anything. But it was because of this competition that he got to know Master Yen Qing. It could be said that they did not get to know each other. The drawing of the inscription formation, I know. Lin Feng was shocked and opened his eyes. It's the rhythm. Yes, it's the rhythm. Lin Feng was overjoyed, and he recalled it in an instant. The drawing of a formation had its own unique rhythm, including the drawing of the source, the drawing of the formation, and all kinds of drawing methods. All of them paid attention to the way of the constellation and had a unique rhythm that made the inscription formation have vitality. It was the same for this maze formation. After stepping on each white cloud, the second white cloud will appear. I can't wait until it appears for the second time before stepping in. I should have stepped in when it first appears. And this requires mastering the time difference. Lin Feng's eyes flashed, and his heart trembled. For the first time, he did not step into the next white cloud immediately. The key was, "I'll know when I try." Lin Feng nodded, his eyes shining. The idea and plan were perfect. However, it was not easy to do. After all, the gap between the appearance of the next white cloud was very short. In other words, to step on it immediately, one had to be a prophet. Of course, it was not really a prophet, but a prediction to determine the time of the white cloud's appearance. The ability to predict was actually very simple. It was memory. However, it was not easy to completely remember. After all, this maze formation had a total of 1,000 white clouds, and the time difference between each white cloud was different. The biggest problem was that the difference was only a millimeter. Whoosh! Whoosh! Lin Feng's figure was like lightning. His eyes were bright and full of spirit, and his mind was completely focused. Even though he was used to refining weapons and could remember many flames, he still encountered quite a bit of trouble this time. It was easy to remember the direction, but difficult to remember the time difference, because there was no trace to be found. He tried again and again. There was no shortcut, only a stupid method. But sometimes a stupid method was also quite good. Just like the foolish old man moving the mountain, it only took a little more time. Perhaps, if he wanted to pass through this mountain, he could climb it. But every time, whether climbing the mountain or moving the mountain, which was better? A shortcut might not be the best. A stupid method might not be bad. The repeated attempts were a challenge for Lin Feng. It was also a challenge that gave him a great sense of accomplishment. This was the first time he had broken the formation. That's it. Yes, it feels good. Lin Feng galloped between the white clouds and did not feel bored at all. It was as if he was solving a chess game and solving a puzzle. That kind of mood and comfortable feeling was indescribable. After walking through the 1,000 white clouds more than a dozen times, Lin Feng memorized the time difference. He spent another 3 days and 3 nights to experiment and practice. Finally, hard work paid off. On the 4th day, Lin Feng finally got what he wanted. Thud, thud, thud. 3 consecutive sounds. There was no gap. The last 3 white clouds arrived in an instant with explosive force. In terms of difficulty, it was quite difficult. But Lin Feng had already experienced countless failures and accumulated experience. He was very familiar with it. The 1,000th white cloud. Whoosh! The light was bright, and the constellation energy shone. This time, the last white cloud did not feel any rejection or resistance. Ta! Lin Feng landed on the white cloud and felt his feet touch the ground. The corners of his lips curled up in a smile. Success! Lin Feng's eyes were bright. In an instant, the space in front of him shook violently. The maze formation seemed to be shaking. The surrounding white clouds seemed to disappear, and a space door slowly opened. Right in front of him, the formation seemed to have lost its binding power. The mysterious feeling disappeared. Only the bright space door was shining brightly. Huff! Lin Feng exhaled softly and immediately landed from the white cloud. I finally solved this maze formation. Lin Feng smiled and stepped into the space door. However, glancing at the surrounding white clouds, Lin Feng suddenly frowned and stopped. Why are these white clouds still changing? Lin Feng was puzzled. Although his understanding of formations was shallow, he knew that once a formation was broken, it would stop operating. But now, other than opening a space door, this maze formation did not seem to have changed. He felt that something was not right. Could it be that this is not the real way to solve the formation? Lin Feng was puzzled. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. Could it be? Lin Feng opened his eyes wide, and his expression changed. This week's explosion begins. Chapter 925. If this isn't the way to break the formation, then... Lin Feng's mind moved. A feeling rose from the bottom of his heart. He seemed to have understood something and figured it out. Lin Feng's eyes were bright and full of vigor. His chest heaved up and down as he closed his eyes. The previous scenes replayed before his eyes like a movie. From the first white cloud to the last white cloud. He kept remembering and replaying it. His heart palpitated, but he couldn't say it out loud. Over and over again. Over and over again. Every time he thought about it, the feeling in his heart deepened. What is it? What is it? Lin Feng pursed his lips and clenched his fists. In a split second, his eyes widened as they sparkled. Let's try again. Lin Feng was shocked. Since he couldn't figure out the reason, he might as well experience it again. Anyway, he had already grasped the time difference. He didn't need to spend 3 days and 3 nights to try again. 30 minutes was enough. At the top of the tower. Not bad. Shagera smiled faintly and nodded. Opportunities had to be grasped by oneself. Lin Feng didn't disappoint him. He is indeed a talent. I wonder how much he can learn. Shagera's eyes were bright as he looked down at the mist cloud formation. Lin Feng was experimenting over and over again. He wasn't in a hurry. He seemed to be enjoying it. His bright eyes seemed to have understood a lot, and there was a faint smile on his face. As expected, there is a secret. This maze formation is so profound. Lin Feng's figure was like a ray of light. He smiled. This was the 10th time he had used the formation breaking technique. Every time he used it, he understood a lot and was moved by it. Now he finally understood. Footwork. This is a very profound footwork. Lin Feng's eyes were bright. It contains a deep Tao of constellation. With a thought, Lin Feng's constellation power gushed out. It was only a small fluctuation of star power, but it was enough to make the white clouds where he stood shine. It was as if the energy of the constellation had been ignited. The rhythm changed in an instant, and the speed of the spatial transformation of the surrounding white clouds instantly increased, becoming as fast as lightning. The time difference had completely changed. The stronger the constellation power, the faster the rhythm of this set of footwork. Lin Feng pondered. The more powerful it is, the stronger it will be. All this time, he had felt a little moved. It was because he was comprehending the Tao of constellation. The strange thing is, the constellation Tao contained in this should not be the Phoenix constellation. Lin Feng frowned slightly, feeling incredulous. Why was he not able to comprehend the Tao of the Phoenix constellation? It was extremely strange. Let's not think too much about it. Let's try to comprehend it first. Lin Feng's eyes shone with curiosity. He really wanted to know the footwork hidden in the maze formation. Just how strong was he? He remembered the time difference very clearly. The rhythm was also fixed. Even if it was enhanced by the astral power, the change of time was the same for every time. Familiarize with it a little bit. Let's start with 1/10 of the time difference. Lin Feng nodded slowly. Step by step, get used to it. Firstly, he had to find the strength of the star power at 1/10 of the time difference. Secondly, he had to master this new time difference. Begin. Lin Feng's eyes shone. With a new goal, he forgot his purpose in coming here in the blink of an eye. This was a warrior. The increase of star power caused the speed to change completely. It also caused the originally small time difference to become even weaker. It was very difficult for a normal warrior to master this small change. But for a blacksmith, he was already familiar with it. Once understood, all would be clear. Maybe the two were not the same, but he could learn a lot from them. Whether it was the control of the balance of star power or the small change in the time difference, Lin Feng could easily master it. Most importantly, the 3 days and 3 nights of foolish old man moving mountain had laid a solid foundation. The rhythm was under his control. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Lin Feng was extremely fast, just like a phantom. Although it was only 1/10 of the time difference, it still took a lot of effort to master it. Obviously, Lin Feng was in a good state. It only took him 1 day and 1 night to master most of it. The rest seemed to be just a matter of time. The strange Tao of constellations doesn't seem to need to be completely comprehended to exert its power. Besides, it's not related to the Phoenix constellation at all. The more Lin Feng cultivated, the stranger he felt. However, he couldn't figure it out. If it's a star technique, it must be guided by the Tao of constellations in order to exert the true power of the star technique. But this footwork is very strange. Even if it's only performed alone, it still has considerable power. It's as if it contains the Tao of constellations. Lin Feng's eyes flickered, and he was curious. That was just his conjecture, and he didn't know the truth. But without a doubt, this set of footwork is very powerful. Lin Feng's eyes were burning. It would definitely increase his combat strength greatly. If he could completely master this set of footwork, he would not only have a great advantage in terms of dodging, but he would also be able to attack with his spear and catch the enemy off guard. His close combat ability would be greatly improved. He was lacking a set of footwork. The further he went, the harder it was to cultivate. Lin Feng spent 1 day and 1 night on the first 800 steps. The last 200 steps were even more refined, especially the last 10 steps, which are the essence of the entire set of footwork. The changes in time were extremely subtle. It took Lin Feng 5 days and 5 nights to completely master this set of footwork. However, that was not all. It's only the first stage. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. 1/10 of the time difference was just for him to adapt. In order to really exert combat power, he had to perform it at his fastest speed and master the footwork in order to exert the greatest power. He didn't have to adapt to the footwork, but rather, he had to adapt to it. That was the true control of strength. Master the rhythm with the fastest speed. Lin Feng clenched his fists and his heart moved. The difficulty was great. However, the greater the difficulty, the greater the increase in strength. The real cultivation had begun. Lin Clan leader, you seem to have made a decision. Lin Yin smiled. It's a very difficult choice. Lin Zhen smiled bitterly and nodded. No matter which decision he made, he would definitely offend one of the parties. The only thing that mattered was the comparison of the pros and cons. There was no perfect decision, only a last resort. Let me guess. Lin Yin stroked his long beard, a bright light flashing in his old eyes. He smiled faintly and said, "In my opinion, clan leader should have decided to help Lin Feng. No one knows me better than Yin Lao." Lin Zhen smiled helplessly, his eyes bright. After thinking about it, helping Lin Feng has more pros and cons than not helping him. Although the clan is much more open now, it's still xenophobic. It's not suitable for us to absorb new blood. This is a problem that every clan has to face, but our Lin clan has more disadvantages. Lin Yin nodded. Indeed, the Lin clan wasn't an orthodox clan that prioritized martial arts. The inability of new blood to enter meant that the Lin clan's martial arts couldn't increase. This point could be seen from the current situation. As one of the top 3 craftsman clans in Shirluo County, the Lin clan couldn't even maintain their status as the boss of a central district. One must know that Shirluo County had 99 central districts. Although the Lin clan had developed rapidly and was as rich as a nation, they were only on par with the Evil Dragon Gang and the Verdant Cloud Brothel. They were still far from the strongest clan, the Wu clan. What was the use if they couldn't be number 1? Moreover, Lin Feng has endless potential. He's even better than Lin Fan. Lin Zhen's eyes were burning. This move will definitely make Deputy Clan Leader Lam Tok Ti feel uncomfortable, Lin Yin said slowly. If it weren't for Lam Tok Ti, Lin Zhen wouldn't be so troubled. Therefore, I've decided to sponsor Lin Feng in my own name. Lin Zhen's expression was solemn. Although it's inevitable that there will be differences of opinion between the two sides and the conflict will grow, at least the side will be able to reduce it. Even if Lam Tok Ti hates me, he'll only hate me. Lin Yin smiled casually. Clan leader, you seem to have a more important factor to consider, right? Lin Zhen smiled helplessly. That's right. Because of Yumal, I have no choice but to choose him. Lin Zhen's eyes flashed with sadness as he said softly, Old Yin will never forget what happened more than 20 years ago. Love, no matter how mature a martial artist is, they will go crazy for it. Lin Yin sighed. Back then, Xiao Dian was indeed unfortunate. Lin Jun shrugged. I just don't want Yuma to repeat the same mistakes. If that happens, the Lin clan will have nothing to show for it. Won't we suffer a double loss? Deputy clan leader's residence. Father, are you sure Lin Feng is the clan leader's illegitimate son? Lin Fan asked curiously. About 50%. Lam Tok Ti's eyes flashed. These days, I've used all means to investigate Lin Feng's background. I even sent people into Yanling Manor and Greensmoke City, but this Lin Feng seemed to have popped out of a rock. There were no clues at all. That son of a bitch. Lin Fan's eyes flashed fiercely. He asked suspiciously, So, father, you gave up on investigating? That's not the case. Lam Tok Ti shook his head. It's just that there's a better way now that doesn't need to waste manpower. What way? Lin Fan frowned. Lam Tok Ti's eyes shone brightly. He said indifferently, In the second round of the preliminaries, you'll be facing Lin Feng. It's a good opportunity to test him. If Lin Feng is really that old bastard Lin Zhan's illegitimate son, he'll definitely support him with all his might. On the other hand, Lin Zhan won't publicly bear such great pressure for an outsider. Lin Fan nodded in realization. I understand. At this moment, beep, beep, beep. The star crystal watch on Lam Tok Ti's left hand beeped. Lam Tok Ti's eyes flashed coldly. He looked at Lin Fan and said, Lin Zhan has decided to support Lin Feng. Damn it. Lin Fan clenched his fists like a ferocious jackal. His veins popped out. Remember, don't let him live. Lam Tok Ti's murderous intent was fully revealed. Don't worry, father. Lin Fan's eyes widened. That son of a bitch is dead meat. Chapter 926. Array of mist clouds. Swoosh, swoosh. Lin Feng's body was as fast as lightning. Shuttling through the clouds, Lin Feng's expression was solemn. The power of the constellation was sparkling, and his speed was raised to the maximum. Like a layer of illusions, one could only see the afterimages. It was impossible to see the direction his body was moving. It was as though he was teleporting. It was very strange. Again and again, round after round. It was not the strongest power of the constellation, but it was the fastest speed. 5 days ago, Lin Feng had passed through the array of mist clouds at the fastest speed. But he did not leave. Not enough. Just a little more. The Tao of this set of footwork is getting clearer. Lin Feng's eyes were clear, and his expression was serious. Just like the spear art, he had completely grasped the form aspect, but the intent aspect was still not perfect. Since he was going to cultivate, he could not give up halfway. He had to finish it perfectly. There were no shortcuts. The practice of footwork could only rely on time and time again to achieve the feeling of the heart. Closing his eyes, Lin Feng did not need to see or feel. With thousands of practice, he could easily perform without any mistakes. His heart was completely relaxed. At this moment, Lin Feng's body had entered a state of consciousness. This was a state of performing footwork. Even if he did not control it with his heart, his body could perform the footwork on its own. This was very important in a battle. If he still had to divide his attention to think about how to perform the footwork and how to coordinate with the moves during a battle, it would undoubtedly be superfluous. Just like when walking, he had to think about how to walk safely. It was too cumbersome. In an ever-changing battle, he had to make the footwork as easy as walking. He did not need to think to perform it perfectly. It was very difficult to use the body's power on its own, but he had to overcome it. With continuous practice and perseverance, Lin Feng had reached this level. After a month of continuous performance, thousands of boring training, and comprehending the Tao of constellation, Lin Feng finally reached the bottleneck of a breakthrough. His body's consciousness had already accepted this set of footwork. Ta, ta, ta. After the last 3 echoes, Lin Feng stepped onto the 1000th cloud. His eyes suddenly opened, and they shone brightly. Executing it perfectly caused his heart to feel much more relaxed. He could faintly feel that his comprehension of the Tao of this set of footwork had improved by another level. At this time, boom, Rumble. The labyrinth formation shook violently. The entire formation seemed to be undergoing some sort of change, as if something was about to happen. Lin Feng was slightly startled and instantly felt curious. This sudden change, after pondering for a moment, Lin Feng looked around and saw that the white clouds were no longer changing in space. Instead, they seemed to be condensing and slowly becoming smaller. However, it was merely a decrease in size. The constellation energy it contained did not change at all. Most importantly, the spatial energy still existed. The core of the maze formation had not changed. White Cloud Tower. His comprehension ability is truly excellent. To be able to comprehend the first level of the Aries constellation's secret, misty cloud steps, his potential is not bad. Shagaruda nodded, his eyes filled with admiration. Compared to Huawei, he is not inferior at all. However, the Phoenix constellation should be proficient in the Tao of Fire and the Tao of Time. This fellow's spatial comprehension ability is truly out of my expectations. I originally thought that he would be able to grasp the transformation of the misty cloud steps. Who would have thought? Shagaruda muttered in his heart. His gaze was like lightning as he stared at Lin Feng below him. Unfortunately, there's only 1.5 months left. Comprehending the first level is already the limit. The second level is 100 times harder than the first level. Shaking his head, Shagaruda immediately walked into the tower. How could the second level be so easy? Even with Jixin's aptitude, she could only cultivate to the third level. From Shagaruda's point of view, although Lin Feng's aptitude was not inferior to Huawei, it was merely not bad. Compared to his daughter, Jixin, there was still a huge gap. The misty cloud formation shook violently for a full 2 hours. As the shaking gradually disappeared, the entire formation regained its tranquility. At this moment, Lin Feng's eyes slowly lit up. Oh! Lin Feng's figure moved and flew down from the white clouds. The entire maze formation had a brand new look. The originally translucent white clouds were now a little more intense. The constellation energy within the white clouds did not change at all. At this moment, this spatial transformation began again, but it was completely different from before. It's twice as fast. Lin Feng's eyes flickered. The spatial transformation was already extremely fast, but now it was as fast as lightning. And when he stepped in the maze formation, his perception of the constellation's Tao became even stronger. But the closer he got, the more he felt that it was unfathomable. Just like the stars in the sky, it was incomparably majestic. It seems to have changed a lot. Let's go take a look. Lin Feng's sparrow wings moved and flew in a split second. His heart was filled with curiosity. It's faster. The distance between the clouds has also shrunk by half. Lin Feng's eyes flickered and he clenched his fists. What did this mean? It meant that this set of footwork had advanced by another level. Shortening the distance by half meant that his execution speed could be doubled again. The footwork changes were twice as fast, and the moving distance was reduced by more than half. This was undoubtedly more advantageous in close combat, and he could unleash more power. The smaller the distance, the faster the change of rhythm. In a battle that was constantly changing, this was a rather crucial step. In terms of dodging, if the distance of dodging was reduced by half, it meant that the attacking speed would be doubled again, and at the same time, it meant that the opponent's reaction time would be reduced by half. This doubling and halving was quite crucial. It was very likely that it would completely reverse the situation. Compared to before, it was much more useful. But it's also much more difficult. Lin Feng's eyes were burning. The footwork changes were twice as fast, and the execution of the star power was naturally more intense. Most importantly, the transformation of the spatial energy was much faster. The time difference between each white cloud was smaller, and the time it took for each white cloud to appear was reduced by half. The addition of the halving of each item was not just a simple accumulation. It was a multiplication which increased the difficulty by 10-fold or even 100-fold. But at the same time, The power also increased sharply. Continue. Lin Feng did not hesitate at all. Since he had started, he should not let it stop. Although the difficulty increased, his foundation was already very solid. Now, he was just improving on the original foundation. As long as it was within his ability, there was nothing he could not achieve. As long as he worked hard enough, an iron pestle could be ground into a needle. The only difference was how much time it took. A 3-month break was a very short period. For martial artists, perhaps one seclusion was already over. But for some, it was very long. Lin Clan. Clan leader, you still haven't found Lin Feng? Lin Yin asked in surprise. The second round of the preliminaries will begin in 2 days, but Lin Feng is still missing. Lin Jun shook his head and said helplessly, "To think that I went against the majority to support him and offended many of the clan's higher-ups. I really picked up sesame seeds, but lost watermelons." After a long sigh, Lin Jun looked depressed. It felt as if all the strength in his body had landed on a ball of cotton, unable to bear the force. During the clan meeting, he supported the cultivation of Lin Feng and did not care about any opposition. He had offended more than 1 or 2 people. However, Lin Feng still had not appeared. Why was he doing this? It's not completely useless, Lin Yin said with a smile. At the very least, the patriarch's attitude has already been revealed. Right now, the martial practitioners of the branch families and the outer families are in high spirits, including the fact that we intentionally leaked this matter out a while ago. The wind in the Qianluo district has also changed. According to what I know, many neutral martial practitioners are already secretly observing our Lin clan. Although I can't see the results now, clan leader has made the right move, Lin Yin said with a smile. Those old fools in the clan who don't know how to make progress are ignorant. They only know how to build a cart behind closed doors. Their foresight is far inferior to clan leaders. Lin Jun smiled bitterly. This is also a great fortune amidst misfortune. Time passed quickly. The second round of the preliminaries was imminent. All the martial artists who had advanced were preparing for it, especially those who couldn't afford to lose. They were going all out, including Lin Fan. Wah! Wah! For pairs of eyes met. 2 bright white lights intersected, flashing with a frightening cold light. They were 2 pairs of dazzling white eyes, filled with the power of destruction and destruction. Lam Tok Ti and Lin Fan stood facing each other, their eyes releasing a terrifying power. They were in the midst of cultivation. The difference was that Lam Tok Ti looked calm and relaxed. However, Lin Fan's face was pale, and he gritted his teeth. The difference in strength was obvious at a glance. Pum! Lin Fan took a few steps back and stumbled. The 2 white lights suddenly disappeared, and their eyes returned to normal. 36 seconds, an improvement of 2 seconds. Lam Tok Ti gave a rare smile. He was very satisfied. Your improvement in these 3 months is huge. It's all thanks to Father's teachings. Lin Fan stood still, took a deep breath, and smiled weakly. My White Mu pupil has reached the peak of level 3. Its power is many times stronger than 3 months ago. Although it hasn't reached level 4, it's easy to kill Lin Feng. With your strength, you have a 50% chance of reaching level 2 cosmic realm state in 3 months, Lam Tok Ti said slowly. But it's far from being as stable as White Mu pupil. Plus, in terms of battle power, White Mu pupil can unleash more power than a level 2 cosmic realm state. Lam Tok Ti's eyes lit up. That old bastard Lin Jun's illegitimate son also has a decent eye technique. Last time, he used it to plot against you. This time, let him know what a real eye technique is. I will definitely. Lin Fan's eyes were as bright as the stars. The bright white light shot out like 2 shooting stars. The corner of Lin Fan's mouth curled up, revealing a ferocious killing intent. Don't cultivate these 2 days. Let White Mu pupil rest well and recover to his best condition, Lam Tok Ti said calmly. Yes, father. Lin Fan nodded confidently. In 2 days, it would be Lin Feng's death date. Tomorrow for update. Chapter 927. White Cloud Pagoda. Boom, boom. Dazzling lights flashed. In the training room of the pagoda, golden starlight dazzled. Two figures, one big and one small, crossed each other. Shi Jixin's small face was filled with a serious expression. As her hands continuously moved, rays of starlight energy shot out and attacked the front. The rumbling sound was shocking. However, they all missed. Pa, pa. Her body was like an illusion, as though she was teleporting. Although it was just a simple movement of her body, there was a unique rhythm to it. If Lin Feng saw this, he would definitely open his eyes wide. This dodging footwork was extremely similar to the 1,000 cloud steps that he practiced. However, the range was smaller and the speed was faster. This is Nebula Light Bullet. Shi Jixin did not admit defeat. Her eyes shone brightly. Rays of light shot out from the starlight wall in front of her. They condensed into a resplendent ray of light. Like a tadpole, it curved and curved, but it shot forward at an extremely fast speed. In the green field of immortals, this move could be used to defeat 100 people and defeat the Wu clan warriors. However, at this moment, there was no place for it to be used. Wah! The figure in front of her suddenly disappeared. Bang! Bang! The nebula light bullets all missed. Shi Jixin was startled. Her expression suddenly changed, as though she sensed something. She quickly turned her head. However, it was already too late. Bang! A palm strike sent Shi Jixin flying. Behind her, the indifferent figure slowly flashed. His expression was calm and composed. It was the sage, Shagaruda. Father, you cheated. Shi Jixin floated in the air and pouted her small mouth. I didn't say that I would only defend and not attack. Shagaruda smiled faintly. His starry eyes were filled with satisfaction. It seems that Jixin's injuries are almost healed. I recovered long ago. Father, you worry too much. Shi Jixin said softly. Caution is the parent of safety. Shagaruda nodded indifferently and said seriously, Jixin, your injuries this time were too serious. Father was afraid that it would cause permanent damage to your body, so I had to treat it carefully. Otherwise, it would be too much of a pity to fail at the last hurdle and stop on the path of martial arts. Shi Jixin stuck out her tongue and blushed. However, she knew that her father was doing this for her own good, so she quickly changed the topic. All right, Dad, how is Lin Feng? I'm still comprehending the second level of the misty cloud steps, but I'm still far from it. It's impossible for me to comprehend it and enter the third level in 2 days. Shi Jixin sneered. Then, can't you give him a little more time? Shikala shook his head. He is, after all, not an Aries constellation martial artist. Although his talent is not bad, but compared to you, Xin, he is still lacking. Even if he is given another 3 months, I'm afraid he won't be able to comprehend the second level. Looking at Shi Jixin, Shigaro's eyes were filled with affection. If it weren't for you, Father wouldn't have had to return the favor to him. The mysteries of Aries constellation is not something an ordinary person can learn. If an ordinary person were to barge into the misty cloud formation, they would have been thrown out long ago. How could anyone barge into the white cloud pagoda? Shi Jixin asked curiously. Is Lin Feng's aptitude just not bad? It's on par with your junior martial brother Huawei. Shikala evaluated indifferently and suddenly looked at Shi Jixin. Actually, I'm very curious. Although his strength is not bad, he is only a Star Lord. That day, how did he manage to shake the Celestial Dog races, stage 9-star sector level, and save your life? Shi Jixin was surprised. Father, you don't know that Lin Feng has an eye technique? Shikala was startled. Special eye technique? Shi Jixin nodded, her beautiful eyes glowing. To be able to shake a stage 9-star sector level martial artist with Star Lord level strength, he must have at least a first-grade eye technique, or even a top-grade eye technique. Shikala's eyes flashed, and his brows furrowed slightly. According to what he had seen for months, Lin Feng had not used an eye technique even once. Little guy, you've hit it quite well. Shikala burst into laughter, revealing a look of admiration. He seemed to have underestimated Lin Feng too much. Misty cloud formation. Lin Feng was experimenting and cultivating over and over again, giving it his all. Countless failures, but countless times he got up and fought again. Lin Feng knew very well that there were no shortcuts in the cultivation of movement techniques. Now that he had the geographical advantage to assist his cultivation, the efficiency was extremely high. If he left here and cultivated again, it would not be so easy. Just the precision of the movement techniques alone was not enough. The slightest difference could lead to a huge difference. How could he miss such a good opportunity to cultivate? Lin Feng knew very well, so he postponed his original plan to go to the 100 Falls. After all, he could enter the 100 Falls at any time, but this maze formation might close at any time. Naturally, he had to make use of it as much as possible. Whoosh, whoosh. Lin Feng moved as fast as lightning. However, sweat seeped out of his forehead, and he felt more and more powerless as time went on. The feeling of space was getting weaker and weaker. He had completely grasped the first 500 steps after a month of hard work, but after 500 steps, it became more and more difficult. The changes in space were extremely fast and very detailed. Even if his reaction speed could keep up, the sensing ability of space could not. Ha! Lin Feng's body moved. He stepped on the cloud, but the feeling that he had been maintaining disappeared. He had failed again. Uff! Lin Feng let out a long breath, feeling a little tired. The further he progressed, the more obvious the Tao of the constellations became. If it was just movement techniques, then with hard work, as long as his body reached a certain level, he would be able to practice it perfectly, just like the first time. However, after the maze formation changed, the requirements for the Tao of the constellations became higher and higher. If the first time, he focused on the form, the foundation, then now he focused on the intent, the mastery of the Tao. Is it the Tao of the constellations that this movement technique belongs to? Lin Feng frowned and said in surprise. Then he shook his head. Lin Feng erased all the doubts in his heart. Since I could cultivate it the first time, why can't I cultivate it the second time? The exact same Tao of the constellations. It feels difficult because the improvement of the Tao of the constellations is beyond my ability. There is no other reason. Nodding his head, Lin Feng's eyes glowed and his will was firm. Since he could complete the first cultivation, why couldn't he complete the second cultivation? Since he could master the first 500 steps, why couldn't he master the next 500 steps? Don't find any excuses for your failure. Lin Feng clenched his fist. His eyes glowed, and he began to cultivate again. Failure. Failure again. Failure again. Every time he completed a step, he would have to experience countless failures. And every 100 steps, there would be a bottleneck. Lin Feng was now stuck at the 600th step for more than a day. Countless failures. He kept falling at this threshold, but Lin Feng became braver with every failure. His eyes were still glowing. I can definitely master this feeling. It's the feeling of space. Lin Feng clenched his teeth, and his heart was firm. The willpower that he had honed since he was young made Lin Feng's conviction extremely strong. Failure after failure turned into motivation, turning into momentum. It was like waves after waves, constantly surging forward. Once again, he entered the 600th cloud. Lin Feng's consciousness was completely focused. At this moment, there were no other thoughts in his mind. He could only deeply sense the position of this space. This was the intersection with the original world. Everything in the surroundings seemed to have disappeared, as if it had disappeared. There was only that shining light spot in front of him. There was only that one existence. Constellation energy. Boom! His head shook violently. In a split second, a familiar energy burst out. It was like dew after a long drought. The originally bitter feeling became incomparably abundant at this moment. His whole body was full of vitality. His right eye flashed with extreme light, dazzling and blooming. It was like the irrigation of the rain in the desert. It caused everything to become completely different. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Lin Feng's body was like a phantom. The corner of his mouth drew a happy and excited smile. The feeling around him was incomparably clear. Even if he didn't close his eyes, he could clearly feel the flow of every breath and the movement of every airflow. The clearest was undoubtedly the space energy. It was like the feeling of blood vessels connected. I've recovered. Finally, I'm back. Lin Feng was in a good mood. He didn't expect that at the crucial moment, his vast star pupil would return. After enough rest and sleep, the vast star pupil lit up his eyes again. The main body of the life spirit had returned. After awakening, the vast star pupil seemed to have become stronger. It was as if the hidden power had been stimulated. The ability to sense space was far better than before. What a strange feeling. What a strong ability to control. Lin Feng was shocked. He sped on top of the white clouds. Originally, these difficult footwork had become extremely easy at this moment. It was as if he could grasp it easily. It was a feeling. The change in feeling, the essence of the Tao of constellation, was completely grasped. After stepping on the 600th cloud, he didn't stop at all. The time difference between each cloud was deeply imprinted in his heart. Previously, he was trapped because his understanding of Tao was not enough. But now, there was no restriction. He was like a wild horse running wildly on the grassland without any obstruction. Step 630. Step 660. Step 699. Step 700. He completely unleashed his power. From his 600th to the 700th step, he passed it in one try. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. With the help of the vast star pupil, the life spirit condensed the strongest energy. It merged with the Phoenix natal chart. It was as if he could control everything around him at will. At this moment, the Tao of constellation became exceptionally clear. The originally vague feeling of space was close at hand. He could reach out and touch it. Lin Feng's vast star pupil and vast star pupil were severely injured. But after eating so many star fruits, they had almost recovered, especially the vast star pupil. Its energy was originally weaker than the vast star pupil, so it recovered faster. In the past 3 months, it was constantly stimulated by the energy of space. It automatically absorbed energy. The vast star pupil recovered faster than the vast star pupil. Not only did it awaken, but it also transformed and improved by a level. Although it was by chance, Lin Feng's persistence was rewarded. Hard work paid off. First update. Chapter 928. With the recovery of the vast star pupil, Lin Feng's confidence increased. Like a dragon emerging from the sea, it was unstoppable. It was just a small test, but he had already taken 199 steps and stopped at the 799th cloud. The second time, he passed the bottleneck of 100 steps and entered the 800th step. After failing 3 times, he reached the 850th step. In just 2 hours, Lin Feng reached the 899th step. His efficiency was shocking. The difference between having pupils and not having pupils was like the difference between a blind person and a normal person. He couldn't do it before, but it didn't mean he couldn't do it now. That's the feeling. Lin Feng's right eye shone brightly. The vast star pupil's spatial sensing ability was extremely strong. After a few tries, he crossed the 900th step and entered the final 100 steps. The finish line was close at hand. White Cloud Pagoda. There's still one more day. Shagaruda looked at the horizon with his hands behind his back. The second round of the preliminaries is about to begin. I wonder what kind of good seedlings will appear this time. Shagaruda's eyes flickered as he slowly walked out of the pagoda. Standing at the edge of the railing, Shagaruda casually looked down. Just like how he did every day for the past 3 months, his expression was calm. Let's see how Lin Feng is progressing. But this time, Shagaruda was stunned. What? Shagaruda frowned as his eyes lit up. 990th step? His heart jumped. After becoming a saint, there were very few things that could make him lose his composure. 1 year ago, the Greenfield Immortal track was one time, and now it was another time. A majestic aura appeared around Shagaruda's body. His golden eyes were extremely terrifying. Staring at the tiny figure below the pagoda, Shagaruda's chest heaved up and down. Just like what GXIN said, it's a special pupil. Shagaruda exhaled, feeling distracted. If it was just a special pupil, he wouldn't be so surprised. But Lin Feng, to be able to reach the second stage of the Misty Cloud steps from the 599th step to the 990th step in one day, that was completely different. Even GXIN does not have such a terrifying training speed, and he's not even from the Aries constellation. Shagaruda was extremely shocked. All this time, he had thought that Lin Feng's aptitude was only on par with Hua Wei's, but it was obvious that he was blind, and not just a little bit blind. Never would I have thought that there would be a time when Shagera, would be dazzled. Shagera laughed instead. He didn't feel angry at all. Instead, he was in an extremely good mood, because he had obtained a good seedling. Misty cloud formation. Lin Feng could already see the finish line. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. His footwork was refined to the extreme. Every time the space changed, the surrounding airflow would become extremely strange and chaotic. Lin Feng's movements became smaller and smaller. At this moment, he was just like Shagera when he was fighting against Shijishin. The feeling of teleportation was extremely obvious. This kind of footwork in a battle, it was quite terrifying. That's the feeling. Yes. Lin Feng closed his eyes, his eyebrows tightly knitted together. The focus of the heart, the state of mind was completely concentrated together, eliminating all obstacles in the surroundings. At this moment, he was completely independent of the space. In front of his eyes, there was only that last shining light. Shio, shio, shio. The light was resplendent. 3 sounds of wind breaking caused the entire misty cloud formation to explode and shake violently. His body was like an illusion. Lin Feng completed the second level of misty cloud steps in one go. He clenched his fists. Very good. Standing on top of the cloud, Lin Feng opened his eyes. His state of consciousness returned to normal, and a smile blossomed on his face. He had finally succeeded. Although I have only grasped the basics, I have comprehended quite a bit of the constellation Tao. As long as I practice diligently, completely grasping this set of footwork is only a matter of time. Clenching his fists, Lin Feng was full of confidence. For the upcoming Vermilion Bird Challenge, it would be a huge help. Against Lin Fan, if I use this set of 1,000 cloud steps, he won't have any chance. Lin Feng smiled faintly. I almost forgot. Not only has the vast star pupil fully recovered, but it has also evolved to another level. His pupil technique is useless against me. Previously, he was afraid of Lin Fan's pupil technique because the vast star pupil and vast star pupil were both in hibernation, leaving only the shell and the life soul. But now, although his vast star pupil had yet to recover against a mere Lin Fan, the vast star pupil was enough. White Cloud Tower. Jixin, do you still remember how much time you spent cultivating the secret Misty Cloud steps? Shagaruda asked faintly. Jixin tilted her head slightly and muttered, I think it was a few hours. What about the second level? Shagaruda's eyes flashed. I don't remember. Jixin shook her head and asked curiously, Why are you asking this, father? Shagaruda looked outside the pagoda with bright eyes. A white cloud covered the mist, revealing a hint of beauty in the haziness. 3 years ago, when you cultivated the Misty Cloud steps, you spent nearly 5 days on the second level, and the last 100 steps took you 3 days to comprehend. I remember, father. You even praised me. Jixin's big eyes flashed as she suddenly smiled. Yes, in terms of talent, Jixin, you are better than father. Shagaruda smiled kindly and patted Jixin's little head. A bright light flashed in his eyes. I always thought that in Shirluo County, there was no warrior who could surpass you in terms of talent and potential, but I think I was wrong. Jixin was startled. Father, what do you mean? Shagaruda put away his smile and looked down at the pagoda with a serious expression. Just now, Lin Feng started cultivating the second level of the misty cloud steps from the 599th step. Now, he has completely comprehended it, and it took him less than a day. He is twice as fast as Yu Jixin. Shi Jixin's beautiful eyes immediately lit up, and she exclaimed, "Wow, it's true. This bad guy is really amazing." There was no jealousy in her eyes. In fact, Shi Jixin had also guessed that Lin Feng's potential was extremely strong. However, she did not expect him to be so strong. Of course, this is only a part of his talent, and it does not represent everything. Shagaruda nodded slowly. However, one can know everything from one glance. He has top-notch eyes and such comprehension ability. This is really amazing. I don't know where Lin Feng's upper limit is, but his lower limit, I can be sure that it is beyond the star sector level. Shagaruda's eyes flashed. Misty cloud formation. It's finally over. Lin Feng looked around. At this moment, the violent tremors had stopped, and everything around him had returned to its original state. The distance between each cloud had returned to normal, exactly the same as when he entered 3 months ago. In the formation, the feeling of the Tao of constellations had weakened a lot. It was as if everything had returned to 3 months ago, and the entire maze formation had started again. However, the flashing light door in front of him proved that he could already leave the formation. What a strange maze formation, Lin Feng pondered. It felt like it was not deliberately trapping him. Thinking about it carefully, it felt like it was helping him. To let him learn the 1,000 cloud steps? It shouldn't be possible. Lin Feng smiled. How could there be such a good thing? Jumping down from the cloud, Lin Feng's eyes were bright and full of expression. Now that his Vastar eyes had recovered, the feeling of his surroundings was completely different. He could see many things that he could not see before. The space energy is not fixed. It is moving around and changing. For each cloud, the next step of the 1,000 cloud steps is not just a single step. Lin Feng's eyes lit up as he pondered. Each cloud corresponded to 3 clouds. Although there was the fastest next step, there were also the other 2 steps that were slow and full of variables. The only difference was that only the first step had the strongest space energy. However, although the other 2 steps had weak space energy, they felt very profound. It was just like playing chess. The move he made was the most incisive and direct move. However, it was obvious that there was more than one move. The other 2 steps were both offensive and defensive, hidden and full of variables. If that's the case, 3 steps after 3 steps, 3 steps after 3 steps, how many changes would there be after 1,000 steps? Lin Feng felt that it was inconceivable. If it was really as he thought, the other side of the 1,000 cloud steps would be even more complicated. It was far more complicated than he had imagined. What a mysterious formation. It contains so many secrets. Lin Feng nodded, feeling alarmed. He thought that he had seen through it, but when he thought about it, he realized that what he saw was only the tip of the iceberg. He did not think about the Tao of transformations. He could continue to comprehend the simplest and purest Tao of space. What would happen if he reduced the distance and increased the speed? The Tao of space that he had comprehended was only a small part of it. Thinking about it deeply, if the Tao of transformation and the Tao of space were combined, what sort of scene would it be? It was endless. As expected, there is no end to learning. Lin Feng shook his head and smiled bitterly. There was no point in thinking too much. Lin Feng put away the thoughts in his mind and stepped out of the formation. He had already stayed for too long. What a beautiful place. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. After leaving the formation, he entered the mountainside of the 1,000 Cloud Mountain. The scenery here was unique. The white fog that filled the sky had a sense of beauty. It was like a peepa that covered half of the face, causing the entire mountain to have a blurred feeling that made one's heart flutter. Although his vision was obstructed, as he slowly climbed up the mountain, his surroundings gradually became clearer. Oh, Lin Feng looked up. Is that the top of the mountain? There's indeed a pagoda. Lin Feng looked over. Although there were many white clouds, he could vaguely see the existence of the pagoda. The pagoda was not tall, and it looked very ordinary. However, under the illumination of the white clouds, it appeared hazy and somewhat ethereal. It made people yearn for it. I wonder if it's the White Clouds Pagoda, Lin Feng thought softly. He smiled as he thought about it. He came to find the White Clouds Pagoda, but the result was unexpected. Lin Feng flew away and instantly entered the white clouds. Second update. Chapter 929. Shi Xin. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. As soon as he reached the top of the mountain, he saw a smiling face. A familiar neat bangs, a porcelain doll-like face carved out of jade, and a pair of big eyes looking at him with a grin. Bad guy, you're finally here. Shi Xin snorted softly. You made me wait for 3 months. Lin Feng smiled embarrassedly. He suddenly realized something and smiled bitterly. It's your fault for not telling me where White Cloud Tower is. I searched around Sakya district for half a day and asked many people, but they all knew nothing. How would those ordinary warriors know? Shi Xin snorted. You're so stupid. Did you forget where you saw me after you came back? Lin Feng was stunned. He clapped his hands and said, that's right. Didn't he see Shi Xin at Famous Tower after he came back? Moreover, he had the dazzling black token given to him by County City Lord Wang Mo, so he could go in and out freely. Other people might not know where White Cloud Tower was or where Shi Xin was, but how could the County City Lord not know? How could the people of Famous Tower not know? Yumal once mentioned that the owner of Famous Tower was County City Lord Wang. Mo. Lin Feng smiled bitterly and shook his head helplessly. Indeed, he didn't think that much. Let's go, you idiot. Shi Xin giggled. All right, Lin Feng smiled. We live and die together, through thick and thin. Now, Shi Xin no longer had any hostility towards him. Lin Feng looked around curiously as he walked side by side with Shi Xin in White Cloud Tower. This tower looked ordinary, just like what he saw outside. However, the tower contained a profound aura and foundation. It was full of mystery. There were layers upon layers, each side encircling the other. It was rather complicated and contained a universe inside. Most importantly, there was an extremely strong pressure in the tower. It vaguely made people feel pressured. Is this White Cloud Tower very special? Lin Feng hesitated for a moment before asking. You can say that. Shi Xin smiled faintly, her eyes twinkling. This White Cloud Tower has a history of tens of millions of years, let alone you and me. Even Father doesn't know how long it has existed. All I know is that the White Cloud Pagoda has existed ever since my Shi family began to protect Shiluo Prefecture. Lin Feng's eyes lit up and he was shocked. He wasn't shocked by the White Cloud Tower's thousands of years of history, but by what Shi Xin had said. The Shi family would protect Shiluo County. In other words, Xin, who is your father? Lin Feng's chest heaved slightly. Shi Xin turned her head and looked into Lin Feng's blazing eyes. She smiled and said, Saint Shikra, the guardian of order of Shiluo Commandery. Hiss! Lin Feng took a deep breath. Sure enough, as he had expected, Shi Xin's background was indeed great. It was no wonder the county city governor, Wang Mo, had to flatter her even though he had a high status. As it turned out, Shi Xin's father was actually a saint. Although he didn't know what guardian of order meant, he knew that the saint was an honorific title for human warriors. Their strength surpassed the star sector level and reached the saint level. Being at the top of the human pyramid was the goal of all warriors, including himself. Are you dumbfounded? Shi Xin smiled. Although she was young, she was extremely intelligent. Naturally, she could see the shock on Lin Feng's face. There was no need to hide his identity. There were many people in Shiluo Prefecture who knew about the existence of a Shi family and the White Cloud Pagoda. It didn't matter if Lin Feng was there or not. As far as Shi Xin was concerned, she had already treated Lin Feng as a friend. Friends didn't need to avoid each other. Lin Feng smiled and said, I'm a little shocked. Idiot, Shi Xin said softly. Her beautiful, eyes flashing. It's just the saint level. For other warriors, it might be as difficult as ascending to the heavens. But for you and me, we will reach this level one day. And this day won't be too far away. Her voice was calm, revealing her confidence. And she was indeed qualified to say this. Saint level. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. He also wanted to reach the saint level, but how could it be as easy as Shi Jixin said? Are you doubting me in your heart? Shi Jixin's beautiful eyes looked at him, flashing a light light. She smiled and said, I didn't say this. It was Father. Father's eyes have always been very good. Since he said you can reach the saint level quickly, then there must be no problem. Your father said this? Lin Feng was startled. Shi Jixin's father, Saint Shikala. He knew him? Yes. Shi Jixin nodded and smiled. Do you think Father's misty cloud array can be easily passed by anyone? Not to mention learning the Aries constellation's secret misty cloud steps. In these 3 months, Father has been watching your every move. Pung. His head exploded. Lin Feng's eyes were filled with disbelief. No wonder. No wonder he always felt that the maze array was very strange. He was still doubtful before, but now he was sure. The Aries constellation's secret misty cloud steps. Lin Feng was shocked and in disbelief. He thought that he had such a good opportunity, but he didn't expect that Shi Jixin's father, Saint Shikala, was behind everything. It was no wonder that the whole thing seemed so strange. Thinking back to how he had been observed for the past 3 months, Lin Feng felt a chill run down his spine. He didn't feel anything at all. Saints are indeed saints. Lin Feng sighed inwardly. The current him was indeed still very far away from the strength of a martial saint. He strolled in the White Clouds Tower. By the way, Jixin, what's the secret? Is it different from star techniques? Lin Feng's eyes flashed with curiosity. Didn't the book say that star techniques are unique to each constellation? Why can I cultivate the Aries constellation's secret? What exactly is going on? There were countless questions in his heart. Lin Feng's eyes flickered. Although Shi Jixin was younger than him, she was obviously much more knowledgeable than him. Of course, the secret and star techniques are different. Shi Jixin shook her head and looked at Lin Feng. She chuckled and said, Let me ask you, after your consciousness enters your natal constellation and sees the 7 main stars, what else do you see before entering the main star to cultivate star techniques? After seeing the 7 main stars and before entering the main star to cultivate? Lin Feng frowned and closed his eyes. Every time he cultivated, his consciousness would enter his natal constellation and he would see the 7 main stars. He would then choose one of them to enter. Apart from the main star, all of a sudden, Lin Feng suddenly widened his eyes and recalled. It's those starlight spots. Are those the secret? Lin Feng looked at Shi Jixin. Apart from the 7 main stars, there were countless other starlight spots in the natal constellation. Although they weren't as bright as the main star, there were plenty of them. If they were gathered together, they would be much bigger and brighter than the main star. Shi Jixin nodded gently. Yes, this is the secret. It's not exclusive to warriors of the natal constellation. Other warriors can cultivate it too. After a pause, Shi Jixin continued. However, it's much more difficult for other warriors to cultivate, and they'll never be able to comprehend the deepest level of the secret. So that's it. Lin Feng nodded in realization. So, Shi Jixin's father specially arranged for me to cultivate this secret Miss Cloud steps? Lin Feng's eyes lit up, and he thought to himself, I understand now. It should be from Shi Jixin. Maybe it's to repay me for saving her life that day. It was easy to deduce that he and Shi Jixin's father were not related at all and had no interactions at all. The only thing they had in common was Shi Jixin. Thank you, Lin Feng said as he looked at Shi Jixin. You're welcome. Shi Jixin winked at Lin Feng with a mischievous look on her face as she stopped walking. Lin Feng was slightly startled. He realized that he had unknowingly followed Shi Jixin to a sealed space. The surroundings flickered with a faint brilliance. It was empty. This is, Lin Feng asked curiously. The martial arts training room. Shi Jixin's eyes sparkled as she looked at Lin Feng. She said slowly, I want to know your true strength. Their eyes met. Lin Feng saw a hint of determination in Shi Jixin's eyes. It was as if he had returned to the time when he saw the grown-up Shi Jixin in The Wizard of Oz. Every move she made contained a terrifying and shocking power. Back then, she had single-handedly turned the situation around. I'll do as you say. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly as his fighting spirit boiled. He also wanted to see how strong Shi Jixin was. Luo County. It was bustling with noise and excitement. With the end of the 3-month break, the second round of the preliminaries began. This time, the ticket prices were higher than in the first round. Although the number of arenas was less than half, the quality was much better than in the first round. Battles between star sector-level martial artists were rare in the first round, but there would definitely be a lot of them in the second round. The level had increased. At this time, as the competition was about to begin, all the martial artists were hesitant. At this point, no one wanted to lose. Between the clouds district, swish, swish, the sound of something breaking through the air rang out rapidly. A white-haired youth held a soft sword in his hand. His eyes shone brightly, and his expression was serious. His sword technique was full of nimbleness. It was like a swallow rapidly changing its figure, suddenly moving up and down, suddenly moving left and right. The sword was filled with profound mysteries. The white-haired youth's body was like a phantom, and his strength was quite impressive. It was Bai Qi, who was ranked first in the preliminaries and was numbered 1. Lin Feng, I know you won't lose. In 3 months, you and I will fight again in the qualifiers. This time, I will definitely win cleanly and convince you wholeheartedly. Bai Qi's expression was serious, and his aura was extremely shocking. Today, he was more than 10 times stronger than he had been in the qualifiers. In the third round of the preliminaries, his opponent would be the winner between Lin Feng and Lin Fan. Lin Clan. Pan, pan. A pair of white eyes shone with a severe light. Lin Fan sat cross-legged in the training room alone. In order to prepare for the competition, he had not even taken a step out of the door for the past 3 months. All the hatred and enmity condensed together. Lin Fan gritted his teeth like a ferocious wolf. His hatred for Lin Feng came from the bottom of his heart. Whether it was in public or private, he had to get rid of Lin Feng quickly. Lin Feng, this day next year will be the anniversary of your death. Lin Fan's murderous aura was revealed. At this time, it was already dawn. There were only 8 hours left before the second round of the preliminaries began. Third update, that you're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.